Her words were barely out when a palm of force slammed straight into her chest. Ye Kao was thrown off her feet and crashed hard onto the stone floor. Spiritual power gathered in the palm of the master she had never chosen. He forced open her storage pouch and drew out the stalk of mayfly grass. Born with rebel bones, no sense of rank or respect. Confined to her courtyard, not one step off the mountain. He tucked the mayfly grass carefully into his robe, then strode away without once looking back. She did not hurry to rise. Mayfly grass grew at the bottom of the demon abyss, where the demon race lay sealed. Everyone said going in was 9 parts death. She went and came back without a scratch. And back at her own sect, she was beaten like this. She braced herself against the wall, stood and wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. This wretched cultivation world. For the sake of her own life, it was time to plan a way out. She woke one morning inside a book, reborn as a tool character in a cultivation novel. To change her cannon fodder fate, she went down the mountain that very night and jumped ship to a new sect. She meant to find a place to loaf and coast. Instead, she was taken in as a direct disciple. Weren't we all supposed to lie flat together? What is happening here? The eldest senior brother, forever gloomy, suddenly found life worth living. The genius second senior brother buried himself in cultivation. The gentle third senior brother thought of nothing but refining pills to feed her. The sweet, dim fourth senior brother dragged her off to cause trouble every day. Watch a fifth stage, chi refining girl lead her senior brothers against the will of heaven. Rewind 1 month. Ye Chao, an ordinary modern office worker, died at her desk after a night of design drafts. She opened her eyes inside a novel. The title, The Whole Cultivation World is Madly Obsessed with Me. Being pulled into a book was fine by her, as long as she got to live decently. But she landed as the stepping stone beside Yunkui, the female lead adored by all. A girl wronged to the very end. The female lead gets seized and she must throw herself in front of the blade. The female lead's spirit root is damaged and she must offer up her own with both hands. Even that she could swallow. She gave the female lead her heart and her guts, and in return took a sword through her own. A whole life is cannon fodder. The word tragic does not begin to cover it. This time was no different. She had scraped through hell to bring the mayfly grass back. Her junior, Suzhuo, a direct disciple, had already reported it to their master, Elder Yunhen of the Yue King Sect. Master and disciple settled the grass's fate on the spot. She was to take it to the medicine hall for refining, then deliver it to the Lotus Court for their little junior sister, the female lead Yunkui. She clenched her fists and said only that she was saving that stalk for her own foundation establishment. Suzhuo answered at once. Their little junior sister needed the herb more than she did. Yunhen nodded in agreement. Their little junior sister was frail. She was healthy, so the grass should go to the girl first. When the sect tournament opened, a senior brother would fetch her another one. How lightly he said it. Was mayfly grass ahead of cabbage? The herb alone was rare past finding. And at a tournament thick with the strong, what guarantee did her master have that anyone would win one? Little junior sister again. Everyone doted on the little junior sister, and she did not even have the right to decide what was hers. Perhaps she had been pressed down too long. This time she said it out loud. So the weak are always right, and the strong deserve to die? Behind her came Suzhuo's voice calling her name. He caught her hand and apologized, promised to repay her, then began lecturing. She had been willful, refusing to yield to their little junior sister. He said the girl was delicate, not like her. Her injured hand throbbed in his grip while the scolding droned in her ear. She yanked her hand free and drove a fist straight into Suzhuo's face. All that swallowed rage needed somewhere to go. If Yunkui wants it, just take it. So the Yue King sect built its standing on robbery. Suzhuo decided she was making trouble for nothing. She did not bother explaining. Go back to your gentle, kind-hearted little junior sister and stop wasting breath on a shameless creature like me. She made a vow in her heart. From this day, she and the Yue King sect were finished. This cannon fodder role, whoever wants it can have it. She was done serving. By her count, her career as a tool was about to begin. The sooner she got away from these fools, the better. She went straight to the Hall of Records and said she wanted out of the sect. She had never been a disciple anyone valued, so the paperwork went fast. She left the fool sect behind and walked out with 100 spirit stones in compensation. Her spirits were soaring when 2 words drifted up behind her. Useless trash. She turned around and asked what he had just said. Before he could answer, she went on herself. "You're right, I am trash." Then she threw her inner sect token back at him. Trash like her clearly could not reach so high a sect. And she walked off without another word. Watching the whole performance, the man simply froze, thinking, has this Ye Chao lost her mind? In high spirits, she arrived at Yunzhong City. She looked over the bustling market. Steamed buns scented the air, and vendors called out for customers to come and taste. Her stomach growled loudly. She stopped at a bun stall and asked the price. The owner smiled. 3 mid-grade spirit stones each. She managed a quick "sorry to bother you," then slunk away. She found a quiet corner and counted out everything she owned. 3 mid-grade spirit stones sat in her palm. Her entire fortune bought 1 steamed bun. Prices here were absurd. Now she understood why the original owner endured such misery rather than leave the sect. It seemed the only way forward was money. But how? She looked at the 2 grand shops before her. One sold talismans, the other pills. The most lucrative paths were talisman and pill cultivation. The original owner was a sword cultivator who had never drawn a talisman, but she had perfect recall. She rented a room at an inn, and there she tried to redraw a talisman from memory. One stroke, then another, and it came out right on the first try. Holding the finished talisman, she felt a thrill. Did that work? Was talisman drawing this easy? First attempt and a successful talisman. Then she felt blood run from her nose. Wiping it away, she thought, so she had underestimated this after all. It was not work an ordinary person could do. Once the bleeding stopped, she decided she could push a little further. A few more talismans then. Half an hour of drawing later. Her spiritual sense ran dry and she collapsed onto the desk. When she woke, a whole stack of talismans lay in her hands. Only the lowest grade Gale and Slumber talismans, but surely enough to earn something. They said a Gale talisman made you run like the wind. Curious, she stuck one on herself, and found that absolutely nothing happened. So she had failed after all. Fine, she would redo them. It made sense. Even the Yue King sect's direct disciples never succeeded on a first attempt. She had overestimated herself. She was about to start over when a force ripped her off her feet. Crash. She punched a hole through the inn wall and cried out from the pain. She looked at the Gale talisman and lit up. So her talismans did work. She went to the black market and set up shop, calling out over her stall with everything she had. Gale talismans, slumber talismans, cheap and effective, 10 mid-grade stones apiece. Nobody came, but she was not discouraged. A new stall took time. But who was this? Not buying and stomping her whole display into chaos. The man was dressed head to toe in red, a direct disciple of the Changming sect, Mu Chongxi. At the words Changming sect, everyone nearby scattered. She stared at the boots still planted on the talismans she had bled from the nose to draw, and swallowed her fury. Outwardly, she stayed polite. "Fellow cultivator, would you mind moving your foot? You're standing on my stall." Told he had trampled someone's goods, Mu Chongxi asked awkwardly whether he had hurt her. She said her body was fine, then immediately clutched her chest and said her spirit had been gravely wounded. Convinced it really was his fault, Mu Chongxi produced a high-grade spirit stone and asked if that was enough. Yi Chao heard high-grade, worked out it was worth 100 mid-grade stones, and could not contain herself. She took the stone without ceremony, tucked it into her sleeve, and magnanimously declared him forgiven. Mu Chongxi crouched to help tidy her stall, saw the talismans, and asked if she was a talisman cultivator. She had a business to run, so she vaguely said yes. Passers-by saw his robes, guessed him a Changming direct disciple, and assumed Ye Chao was one too, which meant her talismans had to be good. And so they crowded in to buy. In moments, her entire stock was gone. Knowing she had ridden that disciple's reputation, she decided sect protection felt wonderful. She really did need to join a proper sect. Lighthearted, she hummed to herself and headed back toward the inn. A few steps in, someone caught her arm. She turned, the Changming disciple again. Strange. He hadn't left? Was something the matter? He asked in complete seriousness whether she still wanted compensation. She was lost. Hadn't he already given her a high-grade stone? Mu Chongxi pointed at her chest and said earnestly that her spirit had been wounded. She had no answer to something so guileless. She had made it up on the spot, and he believed her? With a face like that, he had to be someone with a name in the novel. She asked outright what he was called. He had no idea why she suddenly wanted his name, but he answered honestly. He was Mu Chongxi. Mu Chongxi. Wasn't that the name of the man in the book who destroyed his own Dao heart for the female lead Yun Kei? She started. Then she thought of his fate and felt sorry for him. She cleared her throat and pulled her thoughts back. I hear you're a Changming direct disciple. How are the outer disciples treated over there? Asked about his sect, he told the truth. They were poor. Thinking back on it brought only tears. He had joined at 10 and gnawed steamed buns every day. At home, he had been a young master who never wanted for anything, so he knew at once he had been swindled. He secretly talked his second and third senior brothers into fleeing the sect with him, only to be spotted mid-escape by the sect master. The sect master chased them the whole way. They ran so hard they lost their shoes. Picturing the scene, she had nothing to say. To change the subject, she asked the names of the second and third senior brothers he had mentioned. Mingshen and Xueyu. Ye Qiao thought, wonderful. The spare tire and the loyal lapdog of the novel, all accounted for. Hearing how poor the Changming sect was, Ye Qiao immediately looked elsewhere. The greatest sect under heaven, the Wenjian sect. Two more great sects, the Chengfeng sect and the Bishui sect, were also on her list. Prices in Yunzhong City were too high. All she wanted was to join a sect as a nameless outer disciple, eat well and sleep well. Hearing she wanted to enter the Wenjian sect to sleep, Mu Chongxi gave up on her innocence and walked her through a day there. At the greatest sect under heaven, slack off and you fall behind. Meditation and sword drills before dawn, cultivation theory at noon. And one-on-one sparring at night. Fine, he would tell her about the other sects too. He brought up the Chengfeng sect. That sect, he said, was full of men who barely looked like men, all worshipping the creed that the ugly did not deserve entry. Their standards for appearance were merciless. Then he leaned in and looked her over carefully. His verdict. She was passable, but the Chengfeng sect only took male disciples. She was baffled. The cultivation world discriminated by sex? He shook his head. Not that. Their arts were peculiar and did not suit female cultivators. As for the Bishui sect, most of their disciples were pill cultivators. They didn't eat. Grain abstention pills were enough. After hearing about the three great sects she had once admired, she found the cultivation world insanely competitive. Was joining a sect really this hard? Then he said, all things considered, the Changming sect had the best food. At least 5 steamed buns a meal. That settled it for her. She even found herself a dignified reason. Obviously not the 5 buns, but because she loved a sect that lively, chaotic, no, spirited. She asked at once when Changming registration closed. Mu Chongxi thought about it. The deadline seemed to be tonight. The deadline horrified her. Her reaction baffled Mu Chongxi. The Changming sect was one of the 5 great sects. A recruitment that large should be common knowledge. Yet the girl had no idea and was now in a panic. Half an hour left before registration closed, he drew his sword. He warned her that any slower and they truly would not make it. Power poured in, and the blade visibly swelled. Under her wide-eyed stare, he told her to step on. He would take her to register. Yekao gave him a brilliant smile, thanked him sincerely, and said he really was the most reliable person around. Not long after, a wretched scream tore through the sky. Standing on a sword for the first time, she discovered she was afraid of heights. The blade shot forward. The more frightened she got, the harder she clung to Mu Chongxi's hair. His scalp burning, he could not take it and told her to let go. As he turned to say it, he missed the flying ship coming straight at them. Both were traveling very fast. By the time Ye Qiao spotted it and cried out, the sword tip was already at the hull. Inside the Changming sect, a banner reading recruitment hung high, snapping in the wind. Today was Outer Sect Recruitment Day. Closing time neared and the crowd was still thick. Changming's direct disciple Xueyu was at the registration desk with Elder Zhao, hunting for talent. Looking at the crowd, he thought how the sect had sat at the bottom for a century, resources always short. Anyone with real talent had surely gone elsewhere this year. Elder Zhao stroked his beard, as if he didn't know. They were here to try their luck. Perhaps a good seedling would turn up. He suddenly realized Mu Chongxi was missing and asked where the boy had gone. At the mention of that brat, both men sagged. Xueyu guessed he was out playing again. Elder Zhao could only mutter, never a thought for real work. Thinking of those idle direct disciples, he despaired further. Counting on them to win next year's tournament? He'd sooner count on talent falling from the sky. Seeing the elder gaze upward, Xueyu looked up too, curious. And he did see something, a shape he could not make out, dropping straight down out of the sky. With it came a scream and a voice yelling, "Move, move!" Then the sound of something heavy hitting the ground. Elder Zhao and Xueyu both went blank. A crowd gathered. Voices buzzed. What could punch a crater that size? Inside the dust cloud, Mu Chongxi and Ye Chao straightened their clothes a little. The two of them stepped out, beaming. Mu Chongxi found it thrilling. Recalling his handsome landing, he even gave it a name. Golden Rooster Stands Alone. Ye Chao chimed in with immediate praise. They had smashed the plaza into a crater and were standing there congratulating themselves. Elder Zhao turned purple and demanded to know how much repaving cost. Hearing that, and agreeing it was their fault, Ye Chao meekly offered to fill the hole herself. Mu Chongxi patted her shoulder and told her not to worry. It was just a hole. Elder Zhao was not that petty a man. At that thoroughly dismissive tone, Elder Zhao nearly coughed blood on the spot. Ignoring that walking disaster, he turned and asked who the unfamiliar girl was. She answered earnestly that her name was Ye Chao, and she wished to join the Changming Sect. Elder Zhao decided she was provoking him on purpose. Provoking him to death. The watching outer disciples were quietly impressed. The outer sect alone took in 1,000 new disciples, and on her first day this one had made an inner sect elder remember her face. Xueyu, patting Elder Zhao's back to settle his temper, thought, where did this little character come from? Since Elder Zhao showed no sign of speaking, Xueyu stepped in. Ye Chao, here is your name tag. In his hand was a tag carved with the 2 characters of her name. He told her to keep it safe. In a month, there would be a talent assessment. She took it happily and heard him say he was Xueyu, one of Changming's direct disciples. So this was the warm, supporting man from the novel. She looked him over. He really did seem like a decent person. The freshly certified decent person was signaling his junior brother with his eyes. Unfortunately, one look at that face said nothing had registered. So he asked outright, where did this walking disaster pick up a disciple? Mu Chongxi scratched his head. Met her at the black market, she wanted to register at Changming, so he brought her along. Looking at that guileless face, Xueyu felt his heart break a little. He pulled the boy aside and warned him quietly to watch out for people using him. Those direct disciple robes were hardly subtle. His goodwill went unrecognized. That disaster told him his own heart was dark, which was why he assumed everyone else's was too. Forget it, the boy was a block of wood. Ye Chao noticed the air between the 2 brothers had gone strange. To smooth over the awkwardness, she thought of a good idea. She bowed to Mu Chongxi and thanked him sincerely for bringing her to the Changming sect. Watching this, Xueyu thought, here we go, just as predicted, already working the connection. But the exchange that followed opened his eyes. The girl said plainly that great kindness needed no thanks, so she would not be thanking him. Then she tossed out a "until next time" senior brother Mu and prepared to bolt. His junior brother's hand shot out and caught her. He told her to wait a moment. Mu Chongxi saw the girl looking up at him in confusion. He was a little embarrassed, but money was money. Hadn't she made a bid at the black market? Since she was poor, they'd split the stones 70-30. He'd only take 30. She never expected a direct disciple to begrudge her a handful of spirit stones. She tried to bargain. 80-20 then. He'd get 20. Mu Chongxi felt he had asked for very little and could not help remarking that Ye Chao haggled over even this much. The words were barely out when she clutched her storage pouch and said this was not about spirit stones. This was her life. He had no reply. Mu Chongxi decided to drop it. No spirit stones. The words had just left his mouth. He expected some polite protest. Instead, she took him at his word. Then she wouldn't pay. Talisman paper was expensive after all. Both brothers froze. Any other cultivator would have died of shame. This girl needed no face at all. It seemed he really had misjudged her. Hearing Mu Chongxi had dropped the matter, she fled at once, afraid he might change his mind. Before long, she reached the outer disciples' quarters. The disciples pointed and whispered. That was the one who cratered the plaza on day 1. Impressive, really, getting an inner sect elder to remember her in a single stroke. Someone said, loud enough to carry, that she was the type who made a scene for attention. She felt not the slightest embarrassment, strolling calmly through the stares and the gossip. Seeing her so unbothered, the crowd could only marvel that her skin was thicker than most. Then someone came over and poked her shoulder. Familiar as an old friend, he slung an arm around her and asked if she knew Mu Chongxi. She answered without hesitation. Not really. They had just run into each other. He thought that made sense. Why would a direct disciple mix with outer disciples? Then he introduced himself warmly. He was Du Chun, a sword cultivator. She introduced herself in turn. Ye Chao, an orphan. Du Chun thought this girl had a real gift for killing a conversation. He hurried to change the subject. There were morning lessons tomorrow. Should they go together? She considered it. New place, no one she knew. A companion would be useful. She agreed on the spot. The next morning, on the Changming Sect Plaza, an instructor taught the outer disciples. Today's lesson was the outer sect sword art of the Changming sect, the clear wind art. Her eyelids drooped until she gave up and dozed off. Only now did she regret staying up drawing talismans. Looking at the manual in her hands, she marveled at how competitive this world was. Fresh through the gate, not a day to settle in, and straight into lessons. Around her, others were swinging swords along with the text. Some read and swung at the same time. Their forms were nowhere near correct, every one of them different. Ye Cao calmed herself and looked at the sword art on the page. In her mind rose the image of someone performing those forms, flowing like water. The longer she looked, the deeper she sank into it. Dry characters turned into vivid pictures playing out in her head. The strangeness of it left her stunned. Then someone tapped her shoulder and pulled her back. Du Chun had seen her standing still for nearly an hour and came to ask if she had learned it. She found the images in her head had vanished. She thought she understood it, but she had not tried, so she could not be sure. Learning a sword art from one reading was absurd. Better to test it later. Du Chun had no idea what she was thinking. He only saw her shake her head. He offered kind encouragement. Nobody masters the clear wind art in one afternoon. Besides, some outer disciples came from branch lines of great families. Keeping a low profile never hurt. She thanked him. Privately, she decided not to test it at all. Standing out only invited trouble. All she wanted was quiet days in the outer sect. Today's lesson ended. They could head to the dining hall. At the word food, she immediately searched her memory for the hall's location. Then a voice behind her called her name. She turned, and was startled to find Mu Chongxi standing there. Ye Chao found him remarkably enthusiastic. He even offered to show her around, looking at the sword at his hip. She asked curiously if that was his fated sword. Blades in this world were made of strange stuff. Even the plainest dark iron sword was heavy. What would a spirit sword be like? Seeing only honest curiosity, he admitted it readily and introduced his fated sword by name, Zhaoxi. Ranked third on the spirit weapon list, a first meeting gift from his master. When Ye Chao said she wanted to touch the Zhaoxi sword, he gripped it tight and said solemnly that a sword was a sword cultivator's wife. This was his wife. She refused to follow the script and asked, "So may I touch your wife?" He lost completely to the way this girl talked. Reluctantly, he held out the Zhaoxi sword, stressing that she got exactly one touch. Heart racing, she brushed the blade lightly. A cold that cut to the bone radiated out of it. Mu Chongxi found it very odd that she could touch his sword at all. Zhaoxi was forged from thousand-year frost ice and had a temper. Anyone who tried before had been thrown clear. Ye Chao teased him. That just proves I'm likable. Before long, the two reached the dining hall. Watching the girl across from him devour steamed buns, even the oblivious Mu Chongxi had to remark that he had never seen anyone eat like that. He asked Ye Chao whether she cultivated both the sword and the talisman path. She answered between bites, managing both without missing either. She said she only dabbled, and so far knew only the most basic talismans. Privately, she thought she had never even seen a proper talisman manual. It was all the original owner's memory. That hardly made her a talisman cultivator. Hearing that, Mu Chongxi suggested she ask Ming Xuan if she wanted to learn. But the man was direct line of one of the 8 great families and the only talisman cultivator among this year's direct disciples. Proud, difficult, and close only to their 3rd senior brother. At the name Ming Xuan, she remembered at once, the second male antagonist of the novel. Later, unable to break through for years, he would breed an inner demon, fall to the demonic path, and become the young lord of the demon race. Then fall for the female lead at first sight and open the scramble for her. She thought of Ming Xuan turning demon in the original and Mu Chongxi destroying his Dao heart to become an ordinary man. She could not understand it. Such promising young men, and not one of them got a decent ending. Was that the only way to make the female lead's halo shine? Enough. Her life goal now was to lie flat like a salted fish. 2 months later, the Changming outer sect. Du Chun knocked on her door. He urged her up. Senior brother Ming and senior brother Shui were selecting inner disciples from the outer sect, and Elder Zhao wanted everyone at the plaza. She knew he meant well, but a ruined dream still stung. She stretched enormously and told Du Chun she understood. She was getting up. Without noticing, she had been here 2 months. Sword practice on schedule every day, and beyond that she could sleep all she liked. This was the life she wanted. The lazy have their own way of cultivating. To avoid being expelled, she used talismans to lay a spirit-gathering array in her room. Even asleep, spiritual energy flowed into her. So she had gone from 3rd stage chi refining straight to 5th. When the two of them reached the plaza, one look and they saw 2 figures, standing out sharply from the crowd. Du Chun pointed excitedly. On the left, senior brother Shui. On the right, senior brother Ming. She had met Shui Yu, so the other had to be Ming Xuan. Du Chun was praising senior brother Ming's looks, saying plenty of female cultivators wanted to marry him. Ye Chao sighed, knowing the plot brought no joy. She said reluctantly that they were probably going to be disappointed. She went on. Senior brother Ming's mind was unstable. One day he might well fall to his own demons. She remembered that in the novel Ming Xuan turned demonic precisely because he could not break through for years. She did not say it loudly, but the plaza was crowded. An idle remark, and by sheer luck it landed in Ming Xuan's own ears. He looked at Ye Chao, full of doubt. His unstable mind was a secret. How could she know? Sueyu nudged his shoulder and murmured that this was the outer disciple he had mentioned the other day. Interesting, isn't she? Ming Xuan asked in astonishment. That's the potato landmine? Sueyu told his second senior brother not to speak of a girl that way. Ming Xuan argued back. She cursed him with future demonic collapse. He couldn't even call her short. Then he heard his third junior brother declare in complete seriousness that girls were the most adorable creatures in the world, along with other strange remarks. He added that if he ever had a little junior sister, he would give her everything he owned. Then he drifted off, imagining the little junior sister he had yet to meet. Ming Xuan gave up on him and turned to Elder Zhao, asking what path Ye Chao cultivated. Elder Zhao introduced her as a sword cultivator with mediocre results, far behind the outstanding outer disciples. The key problem was that she went back to her courtyard and slept the moment practice ended. That only sharpened Ming Xuan's curiosity. An unambitious disciple of ordinary talent. How could she know his mind was unstable? He decided to finish selecting inner disciples with his junior brother first and deal with the girl later. After a careful round of selection, he and his junior brother went up to Changming's main peak to report to their master that this year's inner disciples had been chosen. Sect master Qin Fanfan barely acknowledged them, pacing and lamenting. Word was the Yueqing sect had just taken in a direct disciple with a supreme water spirit root. A thing you could count on one hand, and they had snatched it first. He glanced at his 2 disciples and said helplessly that Yueqing had been making quite a name lately. When would these 2 win him some standing? The 2 stood there looking obedient, while the words went in one ear and out the other. Qin Fanfan thought to himself the Changming sect hardly lacked talent, yet every year they lost the sect tournament. Then he thought of his direct disciples. Mu Chongxi and Ming Xuan could not stand each other and picked fights daily, giving nobody peace. And the eldest, Zhou Xingyun, had the highest cultivation yet drifted through life half dead, as if he might depart this beautiful world at any second. All things considered, only Shui Yu counted as normal. Lively today. Mu Chongxi's voice pulled Qin Fanfan back to the present, followed by a cheerful, "Master, is something the matter?" The sight of this youngest disciple filled Qin Fanfan with fresh irritation. You little brat, can you cause me less trouble? Down the mountain every day with that outer disciple Ye Chao. Are your parents living down there? Scolded the instant he arrived, Mu Chongxi felt deeply wronged. He said flatly that nobody else would play with him. Then he pointed at Ming Xuan and Sui Yu and accused them of going everywhere as a pair. He went on. Senior brother Zhou vanished all day, and both inner and outer disciples were afraid of him. Only Ye Chao would come down the mountain with him. The more he spoke, the sorrier he felt for himself. Perhaps he had blamed the boy unfairly. Qin Fanfan cleared his throat and changed the subject. I called you here to ask, Would you rather have a junior sister or a junior brother? Your master intends to take another direct disciple. Privately, he thought 9 months to the tournament and still no suitable candidate. He might as well ask them. Mu Chongxi spoke first. A junior sister, obviously. Every sect has one. Ours is nothing but men. Even those dried-up sword cultivators at Wenjian have one. Ming Shen shot back on reflex. As if you aren't a sword cultivator yourself. Xue Yu ignored the bickering and stated his position. No junior brother. He offered Mu Chongxi as evidence. Even the yellow dog at the sect gate found him annoying. Not the least bit cute. Finally, he got to the point. He simply preferred girls. Qin Fanfan stroked his beard and found the reasoning sound. 4 men already. It was time for a female disciple. Then he asked, so who should I take? This year, the outer sect had a few with decent talent, and the inner sect had several girls with high-grade spirit roots. Mu Chongxi recommended Ye Qiao without a second's thought. Xue Yu, usually the reliable one, agreed. Master, Ye Qiao really isn't bad. He said it aloud, and he meant it. He had an odd feeling this girl would liven the whole sect up, and lively was exactly what he liked best. For added weight, he asked Ming Xuan, who had always been on his side. Already curious about the girl, Ming Xuan realized that if she became their junior sister, watching her would be far easier. He thought for a moment and nodded. Seeing all 3 disciples set on Ye Qiao, Qin Fanfan still hesitated. Word was the girl had little talent, slept flat all day, and kept dragging Mu Chongxi down the mountain. Mu Chongxi kept selling his friend. Our sect finishes last every year anyway, and we won't find a genius this time either. Ye Qiao is fine, lively and interesting. Qin Fanfan found the argument odd, then decided it was not wrong. 100 years of last place. Who the 5th direct disciple was hardly mattered. Having thought it through, Qin Fanfan achieved full enlightenment. He would stop competing, let the strong be strong. The Changming sect was lying flat. Stars filled the night sky. Lamps still burned in the outer disciples' quarters. Knowing nothing of any of it, Ye Qiao yawned and climbed into the bed she had been waiting for all day. She kicked off her little boots and burrowed under the warm quilt, thinking at last she could sleep. She was sleeping soundly when urgent knocking woke her. A voice outside called, Ye Qiao, the sect master wants you. Go up to the main peak now. She thought 2 months in the sect and she knew only outer disciples. Why would someone of the sect master's rank summon her? The more she thought, the worse it felt. But there was nothing to do but go. She dragged herself up the steps, exhausted. No good could come of this. Did nobody consider that she couldn't ride a sword yet? Was walking the only option? The angrier she got, the more tired she felt. She tried a different angle. Climbing 900 stone steps to see the sect master was rather like an emperor ascending to court. Not bad at all. After that round of self-consolation, she finally reached the main peak and found the sect master with his 3 beloved disciples. Sleepy, exhausted, and starving, she greeted them. Sect master, 3 senior brothers. Qin Fanfan looked at the girl, barely keeping her eyes open, and thought the rumors were accurate. Night held the richest spiritual energy, and she spent it sleeping. He collected himself and asked in a gentle tone, Ye Qiao, would you like to be a direct disciple? The half-asleep girl came instantly and fully awake. She screamed and sighed. What sins had she committed to be made a direct disciple? Qin Fanfan went on introducing his 3 disciples. He said these were her senior brothers, and she had surely met them all. She wanted to pretend she had heard nothing. Perhaps then this would count as never having happened. Seeing her silence, Qin Fanfan assumed she was shy. She looked up at Mu Chongxi and thought, of course we've met. We went down the mountain together days ago. And today he's my senior brother? Mu Chongxi read her reaction as pure joy, leaving her speechless. Qin Fanfan was sympathetic. Anyone struck on the head by a pie from heaven would be overwhelmed. He stroked his beard. Ye Qiao, pack your things, move into the courtyard tomorrow. It defied all reason. But the matter was settled and she could change nothing, so she answered obediently. This disciple obeys. That expression, wanting to cry and unable to, Qin Fanfan translated on his own. The girl might lack talent, but she knew gratitude. So moved, she was nearly in tears. She had no memory of how she got back to her outer sect room. Back under the quilt, a girl who always slept easily now lay wide awake. She truly did not understand how things had slid this far. She knew that of direct inner and outer disciples, the direct ones carried the heaviest load. Beyond the tournament, there were lessons and drills. According to Mu Chongxi, an inner sect elder personally trained his reaction speed, which meant being hit every day in class. She remembered offering him a few hollow words of comfort back then. Yichao had never imagined it would be her turn to suffer. Don't think about it. Thinking about it brought tears. By next day, the whole outer sect was discussing Ye Chao's promotion. Where there are people, there is politics, especially when personal interests are involved. Some were indignant. She scored worse than they did in class. Others insisted she had gone through the back door. Poor talent, poor assessments. Normally, a direct disciple would be chosen from the inner sect. One stirred the pot. Exactly. Wasn't senior sister Ning a better fit? The senior sister Ning they meant was Chang Ming's inner disciple, Ning Qing. And Ye Chao, the center of all this talk, was being helped to pack by Du Chun, her only friend in the outer sect. Seeing her deflated, Du Chun teased her. Not bad, kid. Made direct disciple without a sound. At those two words, she sank further. Nobody understood her. Seeing someone usually so bright-looking wilted, Du Chun reached over and pinched her cheek. Smile a little. That long face won't do. She produced a smile so ghastly that he told her to stop. She took out a stack of spirit-gathering talismans and gave them to Du Chun. She told him to paste one at his bedside. He could cultivate lying down at night. He was skeptical. Seriously? Cultivate while lying down? Something that good exists? She pulled herself together, shouldered her bag, and told him to try it and see. Then she said goodbye and left. She had barely opened the door when steel rang out. She looked up. A sword hovered inches from her face. The newcomer was the inner disciple Ning Qing. She demanded to know what qualified Ye Chao to be a direct disciple. Just being close to senior brother Mu? The more she thought, the angrier she got. Her words grew uglier. Finally, she said it outright. A mid-grade spirit root piece of trash like you, what right do you have to cultivate on the main peak beside senior brother Mingshuan? She genuinely felt her luck had hit rock bottom. First, becoming a direct disciple out of nowhere, cutting short her happy salted fish life. Then, just as she'd made peace with a new life, she opened her door to a sword in her face, and a tirade delivered straight at her. She did not answer. She simply pushed the blade aside with her hand and said, "If you have something to say it properly. The Changming sect forbids drawing on fellow disciples without cause." She sighed, her voice full of sorrow. Nobody knew how deeply she envied senior sister. Ningqing froze, then snapped. "Envy me for what? Envy me for not being made a direct disciple?" Instead, wearing the face of a woman cursed by fate, she said she sincerely envied everyone who didn't have to work hard. Ningqing heard that and thought, this girl is unwell. Neither of them noticed the man who had appeared behind them. It was Changming's direct disciple, Zhou Xingyun. He was studying the flower in his hand, and without so much as a glance at either of them, he said flatly, one word, leave. Both spun around in alarm, with no idea how long he had been standing there. Ye Chao stepped forward and greeted him properly, eldest senior brother. Watching his entire attention rest on that flower, she thought, she had met the other three. Only Zhou Xingyun had yet to appear. She recalled his character in the novel, a handsome, gloomy man who spent every day pacing the edge of wanting to die. In the end, saved by the gentle, kind-hearted female lead, after which he diligently joined her harem. So absorbed in the plot, Ye Chao did not notice a strand of her hair standing straight up. Zhou Xingyun looked at the new junior sister's stray lock and felt an urge to smooth it down. And the lock kept swaying. He genuinely could not steady his trembling hand. He pressed the offending strand flat for her. Ye Chao stared blankly at the eldest senior brother she was meeting for the first time. He had no time for explanations. He was locked in combat with that unruly lock. The moment he let go, it sprang back up. He was ready to explode. He swallowed his anger and pressed it down again. Looking at that indomitable strand, he finally ran out of patience. Ye Chao, watching him obsess over her hair, began to suspect he had a compulsion. Zhou Xingyun, so as to stop seeing that infuriating lock as soon as possible, hauled his junior sister onto his sword and flew to the main peak at maximum speed. On finding Zui Yu, he threw her straight at him. Watching the eldest stride off, Shui Yu thought he seemed off today. Before he could dwell on it, he heard retching in his arms. Ye Chao was screaming inwardly that Zhou Xingyun flew far too fast. What she did not know was that Zhou Xingyun was at that moment straining for self-control. He badly wanted to shave that stupid lock off with one stroke of his sword. Seeing the state of her, Xueyu hurried to look after the junior sister he had waited so long for. He was still hoping for the lively days she would bring. After resting a while on the main peak, she recovered and asked Xueyu curiously as they walked. Third senior brother, does the Changming sect hold a discipleship ceremony? At the question, his stride hitched. Then he told the truth. No ceremony. At least none of the four of them had one. She recalled that in the original, Yunkei's induction at Yueqing had drawn congratulations from every direction. Why was it so bare here? She asked outright, so why do other sects have one? A pointed question. Xueyu coughed to cover his discomfort, then answered, probably because we can't afford it. Hearing that honest answer, her mind translated it instantly. In plain words, they were broke. The most profitable paths in this world were talismans and pills. Changming had barely any of either, so of course they were poorer than the rest. Seeing her face fall, Xueyu changed the subject at once. They only had 2 classes, cultivation theory and combat training. Seeing her still listless, he added that an elder supervised both. If she didn't understand something, she could ask the elder or come to him. Hearing that description, wasn't it exactly like high school? She felt herself about to collapse. What sins had she committed? She had escaped the prison of high school only a few years ago, and transmigration had dropped her into another one. Just then a wave of dense spiritual energy hit her face and pulled her attention away. At last she understood why direct disciples outstripped ordinary disciples by so wide a margin. Seeing her astonishment at the wild currents of energy, Xueyu thought, up here the stuff was inexhaustible. He produced a bottle of spirit anchoring pills and handed it to her, telling her to swallow one. She would feel much better shortly. Yi Chao accepted the pill with both hands. She suddenly remembered its use from the original. For someone whose foundation was unsteady, whose cultivation had been stacked up on treasures, swallowing one rebuilt that foundation fast. No matter how fine a thing was, it only became yours once it was in your stomach. She swallowed it. The original said that even a genius like Xueyu had refined only 3 of them in 3 years at Changming and had given every one to the female lead Yun Kui. And now one had come to her. She thanked her third senior brother sincerely, hearing his junior sister call him kind. He decided that a junior sister really was better. Sweet and polite both. Nothing at all like that block of wood Mu Chongxi whose every sentence was a demand. Some people appear the moment you mention them. He had barely crossed her mind before he arrived. His scream came down out of the sky. Yi Chao followed the wretched sound and caught only a blur streaking past. She marveled. Wow, that birdman flies fast. Then came a crash, something heavy hitting the ground, and it startled her badly. Watching the birdman crawl up off the dirt, she realized it was her new senior brother, Mu Chongxi. Back on his feet and evidently humiliated, he jabbed a finger at his nemesis and roared, "Mingxuan, you want to fight?" At the challenge, the smile fell off Mingxuan's face. He pulled out a handful of talismans. "Fight then. You think I'm afraid of you?" Watching the 2 of them square off, Ye Chao thought they looked more like enemies. She asked her third senior brother curiously, "Is this how they are in private too?" Xueyu answered as though it were the most ordinary thing in the world. Yes, once they finish, it passes. Nothing to worry about. Her third senior brother had it wrong. She loved a good spectacle. Her eyes lit up and her voice rose. Really? Inside, she was cheering. Excellent. Fight, fight, fight. She had never seen people brawl before. Yu turned to look at her. Why did he get the sense she was thrilled? Ye Chao realized her face had betrayed her. She instantly swapped to an expression of profound grief and repeated it. Really? Xueyu had no words. Don't think a change of face hides how badly you want to watch. He physically separated the 2 before they detonated and played peacemaker. Enough. Get to the training ground. Elder Duan Yu will be here shortly. Disciples were already practicing on the training ground. The elder in charge of their training, Duan Yu, was a burly, thickly bearded man. He clapped Ye Chao on the shoulder and asked, "You're the new direct disciple?" And she coughed up a mouthful of blood. Then collapsed face down. Elder Duan Yu himself was stunned by the sight, disbelieving. She can't take a tap? Mu Chongxi pursed his lips. Elder, she isn't me. You've been beating on me for years. It's her first day. Go easy on her. Ye Chao shot him a grateful look. thinking their friendship had not been wasted. Elder Duan laughed dryly. Of course. He knew his limits. He handed Ye Chao a copy of Treading Breeze and told her to try it. Then said, "This art increases speed. Every direct disciple gets a copy. Your senior brothers have all mastered it. Practice hard these next few days." She hugged the manual and answered obediently. Elder Duan had clearly heard about her lying flat in the outer sect, so he issued a warning. In 3 days he would test them. Anyone too slow could expect a boot. Ye Chao heard the word boot, and could not help wondering exactly how the booting worked. Just then Elder Duan's gaze shifted. Mu Chongxi was still standing rooted in place. That block of wood could not read a room. The longer he looked, the angrier he got. He lifted a leg and drove a hard kick into the boy's backside, bellowing as he did. "What are you standing there for? Go train!" Mu Chongxi went flying. He rubbed his aching backside and complained. "Elder, could you not just use words?" That was a heavy foot. Ye Chao watched all this and went pale. She liked lying flat. She did not like being kicked. Time flew, and 3 days were gone. Everyone was training hard. Ye Chao was running with everything she had, and Elder Duan's voice was still in her ear telling her to go faster. She felt a kick coming for her backside. She immediately drew on Treading Breeze and dodged half a step ahead. Having evaded the boot, she grasped in that instant the true meaning of this art. The benefit of Treading Breeze was that you dodged the kick a little faster. Mu Chongxi beside her pulled her along, telling her not to slack. It was not over yet. He said if she didn't want to be kicked, she should just run behind him. Neither dared stop. They ran flat out with Elder Duan right behind, allowing not 1 second of slack. Mingxuan, being a talisman cultivator, was exempt. He sipped tea at his leisure and made the occasional jab. Ye Chao got called a potato landmine by that sharp-tongued second senior brother more than once. Also, why are you so short and does your family not feed you? Hearing all this, Ye Chao forced herself calm and ran the mantra. Others rage, I stay serene. Rage yourself sick and nobody takes your place. Those talisman cultivators, never chased, never kicked, with time to spare for laughing at other people's misery. Truly infuriating. And so the days passed. 2 months later, during a theory class, Ye Chao was daydreaming again. She was thinking how effective Elder Duan's training was. Add the main peak's spiritual energy, and in 2 months she had climbed straight to 9th stage Qi refining. Elder Zhao looked down and spotted Ye Chao drifting immediately. He ordered her to answer the question he had just posed. If she couldn't, she would be sweeping the scripture pavilion afterward. She stood up tense. She hadn't heard a word. She didn't even know what the question was. She could not understand why Elder Zhao called on her every single time. Did the man have a grudge? She glanced over and saw Mingxuan yawning and embraced the principle of better a fellow cultivator die than oneself. She pointed straight at her second senior brother and announced loudly, "Elder, senior brother Mingxuan says he knows this one." Mingxuan froze at the dirty move, eyes wide on the culprit, utterly dumbfounded. Only then did Elder Zhao notice Mingxuan sitting there blankly, and he ruled. Then Mingxuan will demonstrate for his juniors. Ye Chao exhaled when he stood, wearing her sweetest smile. If you don't descend into hell, who will? Senior brother, you're the hope of Changming's entire talisman lineage. They say the capable shoulder more. Do bear a little extra hardship. She smiled in triumph, thinking, senior brothers exist to be thrown under the cart. It was absolutely not revenge for him constantly calling her a potato landmine. Halfway through the lesson, her eyelids drooped again. Her head dipped and her eyes began to close. Seeing this, Mingxuan knew his moment had come. His voice drifted gently into her ear. Junior sister, class is over. Half asleep, Ye Chao was exquisitely sensitive to those 3 words. She woke fully in an instant. She shot to her feet on reflex. The motion was too violent. Crash. She knocked the desk clean over. On instinct, she started running for the dining hall, only for Mingxuan to catch her wrist. A bad feeling settled over her at once. Sure enough, she turned to look, and found Jueyu and everyone else still sitting neatly in place. Class was over where exactly? Elder Zhao demanded to know why she had stood up, then went incandescent. Are you dissatisfied with my teaching? Is that why you kicked a desk over for entertainment? Seeing her scolded, Mingxuan finally smiled. Heaven sees all. Retribution never misses, junior sister. The words were barely out when Elder Zhao rounded on him. And you can't even learn something this simple. Both of you get out and go sweep the scripture pavilion. At that grim news, the smile vanished from Mingxuan's face. Ye Chao, sullen a moment ago, burst out laughing. She needled him. The wheel of heaven turns, and it spares no one, senior brother. Mingxuan had no answer. He only snapped his fan shut. After class, the two of them dutifully went to sweep the scripture pavilion. The steward sat in his chair and glanced at her. Sweeping again? Ye Chao counted it up. Since Elder Zhao's theory class began, she had been sent here to sweep more than 10 days running. The two who had just sabotaged each other now walked to the scripture pavilion together. Mingxuan had never done this kind of work and did not move. Ye Chao swept for appearances. When her broom reached her second senior brother's feet, she said in a tone that promised trouble, "Move." Mingxuan swallowed his temper and said nothing. Feeling her glare, he wisely shifted his feet. To reassert his importance, Mingxuan restated his position. He was not only the sole talisman cultivator among Changming's direct disciples. He paused, then added, he was also the second senior brother. Did this girl not know to respect her seniors? Ye Hao hung the broom over her arm and clapped perfunctorily. You're really something. Mingxuan heard that flat, lazy tone and decided she was mocking him. The two stared each other down, neither yielding, dueling with their eyes. The steward, seeing them rooted in place, reminded them that no sweeping meant no dinner. Ye Chao threw down her broom and sprawled on the floor, declaring that if Mingxuan wasn't sweeping, neither was she. The minutes crawled by. About an hour passed with the two of them still deadlocked. Mingxuan cracked first. He clutched his growling stomach and admitted he was hungry. Hearing that, Ye Chao sat straight up and said she was hungry too. Mingxuan cleared his throat and proposed they sweep faster. Seeing Mingxuan pick up his broom first, Ye Chao did not drag it out and agreed at once. Consensus achieved in a heartbeat. They seized their brooms and swept like mad. Anything to finish early and reach the dining hall. The two of them leapt about, dust flying everywhere. The steward, reading in his chair, choked on it and coughed. He looked up to find the two idlers now moving like a pair of mantises, claws slashing. After a slapdash job on 2 floors, they told Steward Wang they would finish the rest after dinner. Without waiting for approval, they were gone, feet greased. Steward Wang watched them go, mouth twitching. Those 2 disasters. He called out toward an empty corner. That girl is the good seedling you mentioned? What good seedling? She looked more like a starving ghost reborn. Elder Duan stepped out of the shadows. He had seen everything. He stroked his chin and said slowly, Ye Chao's memory is excellent. Perfect recall, you might say. An art like treading breeze took even Mu Chongxi, born with sword bones, more than 10 days to master. Ye Chao had it cold in 3. That was exactly why he had made his suggestion to Elder Zhao. That the girl should sweep the scripture pavilion often and read while she was at it. Otherwise, wasn't such talent going to waste? And look how it turned out. She swept and ran, never once considering a glance at a single book. The steward voiced his doubt. If she truly had perfect recall, she'd have the sword manuals memorized backward, wouldn't she? Then why were her outer sect scores always so ordinary? Elder Duan thought about her record and fell silent. He could not help wondering whether his own judgment had failed. After dinner, the punished pair headed back to the scripture pavilion. Night had fallen and the moon hung over the treetops. Ye Chao remarked that a full stomach brought full spirit. Mingxuan glanced over, saying 2 floors to go and then they could sleep, while watching his junior sister yawn hugely. He fell into deep doubt. Did girls eat like this now? In his memory, the inner sect junior sisters were full after 2 bites. This junior sister had put away 5 steamed buns in one go. The thought of sleep filled Ye Chao with energy. She picked up her broom and called out, Let's go, 3rd floor first. The 3rd floor was packed with talisman texts, shelved with unusual precision. She pulled one out and flipped through it, asking Mingxuan where they all came from. Mingxuan answered proudly, handed down from the founding ancestors. Every book here is a one-of-a-kind original. Only direct disciples may enter a scripture pavilion. Inner and outer disciples aren't even qualified to sweep it. Ye Chao pointed curiously at a page. So what does this fire control talisman do? Looks valuable. Mingxuan studied the pattern and asked warily, why would a sword cultivator care? Without so much as a blink, Ye Chao poured out something sweet. She might be a sword cultivator, but she had a natural longing for the talisman path, especially now that the world held a genius like her senior brother. The whole speech went down beautifully. Who doesn't enjoy a junior sister's admiration under that worshipful gaze? Mingxuan cleared his throat. Watch closely then. I'm only doing this once. And he began drawing. His hand was not slow. Lucky that Ye Kao's memory was good, or those wild, unrestrained strokes would have been impossible to follow. Before long, Mingxuan told her, "That is a fire control talisman." Then flame bloomed at his fingertip like a magic trick. The temperature spiked in an instant. Through the whole process, Ye Chao's eyes never left him. It was her first time watching an orthodox talisman cultivator work. She marveled aloud, amazing, incredible, and applauded. The praise left Mingxuan a little lightheaded. He decided his junior sister had her merits after all and offered, "If you want to learn, I can teach you." Ye Kao knew how to take a favor. She thanked him first, then said she thought she had the process memorized. She picked up a talisman brush and added, "Probably won't need it." She repeated exactly what her senior brother had just done. Spirit flame bloomed on the paper, a frail little tongue of fire trembling as if it would gutter out. He had not expected her to succeed on the first try. Looking at the small flame spinning on the talisman, he tried in alarm to stop her. Wait, that spirit flame moves. Too late. Before Ye Chao could enjoy her success, she could only stare. The spirit flame shot off the paper. Mingxuan twisted aside. The bookshelf behind him was not so lucky, as both of them watched in horror. The flame spread like a wildfire, the instant it caught. Mingxuan condensed a large sphere of water and hurled it, snuffing the spirit flame in a blink. The fire was out, and neither of them had time to exhale. Before the steward's roar came from behind them. "Ye Chao, Mingxuan!" Steward Wang came rushing in. One look at the scene and his blood surged, his beard bristling. He seized both of them by the collar and bellowed. "Why were you two playing with fire in the scripture pavilion? Have you lost your minds?" Then, through gritted teeth, he asked whether they had some grievance against him. Both were entirely in the wrong. One hurried to say no, the other said they wouldn't dare. Hearing that, Steward Wang laughed in fury. He shot back. "Wouldn't dare? Yet here you are burning down the pavilion?" Fire spreads in a heartbeat. More than 10 talisman texts were half consumed. Some had been doused and were now glued together. No thought required. They were ruined. Looking at it, Steward Wang's heart bled. Ye Kao understood the gravity, too. These were one-of-a-kind originals. Seeing his grief, her conscience would not settle. After some hesitation, she asked, "Elder, do you happen to have memory stones here?" She reasoned that one-of-a-kind books had to be recorded in memory stones. Otherwise, a single accident would break someone's heart. Steward Wang's eyes were still wet. "What good would giving you one do? A memory stone can be viewed once. Open it twice and it's finished, and they cost a fortune. Are you claiming you can memorize everything in a single pass?" She knew this disaster was hers. She extended a hand tentatively and made her proposal. "How about this? If you can trust me, give me the memory stones for those dozen texts. I guarantee I will copy them out complete, not one character missing." Steward Wang remained uneasy. But he remembered Elder Duan saying she had perfect recall. In this situation, one might as well treat a dead horse as a living one. Seeing how serious her face was, clearly not joking, Steward Wang produced the memory stones and finally agreed to let her try. He fixed her with a hard stare. "Copy them in the forbidden grounds. Until you're done, don't think about coming out." Privately, he thought, and we'll see whether this girl truly has perfect recall. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught Mingxuan trying to slip away. He knew that one was in it too, and called him back. Both were sent into the forbidden grounds. They would come out when the copying was done, and not before. Mingxuan, who had thought himself clear, now cursed his own slow feet. He had been so close to escaping. Spiritual energy coiled around the main peak. Elder Duan was drinking tea and gossiping with Zhou Xingyun, telling him his junior sister had caused trouble again and burned the scripture pavilion with Mingxuan. Impressive, no? Why did that tone sound faintly excited and gleeful? Zhou Xingyun thought, this Ye Chao truly never rests. She cratered the plaza the day she registered. And now, barely a direct disciple, she had set the scripture pavilion on fire. He went on drinking tea, his face unchanged but inwardly wondering. Had they gained a junior sister or picked up a calamity? Elsewhere, Ye Chao and Ming Xuan entered the forbidden grounds. Green hills, clear water, an air of ancient mystery. Calling it forbidden seemed wrong. It was a beautiful, quiet place to cultivate. Seeing how wide-eyed she was, Ming Xuan explained its origins. This was where the founding ancestor ascended. Treasures were said to remain, and danger with them. She only wanted to finish copying and had no dreams of treasure hunting. They walked on and found someone already there, facing a wall in penance. The back was oddly familiar. Ye Chao looked closer. Wasn't that her beloved third senior brother? Xue Yu waved warmly when he saw them, then asked what brought them here. He thought, these were the forbidden grounds, usually reserved for direct disciples and penance. You couldn't get in even if you wanted to. Ye Chao saw no reason to hide it and stated her crime plainly. She had burned the scripture pavilion. Xue Yu was quiet a moment, then glanced at Ming Xuan and asked, and him? Ye Chao answered honestly. He burned it with her. Xue Yu clutched his own chest, and could not help wondering whether his fellow disciples had finally lost their minds. After a pause, he asked, does our junior sister have a grudge against Steward Wang? Ye Chao shook her head. She had only been playing with fire and burned the books by accident. Xue Yu was more speechless still. What normal person plays with that in the dead of night? As for him, he had refined some pills and fed them to the brothers nearby. The potency turned out wrong, and the whole lot went down poisoned. Seeing him finish and give a sheepish laugh, Ye Chao had no words. What heretical cult's direct disciples were these? Ming Xuan dropped to the ground, fanning himself, already urging her on. Copy faster, junior sister, we don't get out until you do. She supposed that was true. She laid out brush, ink, paper, and inkstone, then sent her spiritual sense into the memory stone and closed her eyes. Inside that world, page after page of talisman text turned. She held her whole mind on it, memorizing every character. Then her eyes snapped open. She picked up the brush and wrote. Rushing, her characters came out like scrawled spells, wild and unrestrained. Her own parents would not have recognized them. Watching this, Xue Yu quietly elbowed his second senior brother and murmured, what is she doing? Copying books? Ming Xuan explained. She burned more than 10 talisman texts on the 3rd floor. To calm the steward, she promised to copy them all. Xue Yu went rigid. Copy them all? If her memory truly worked like that, what kind of monster was this junior sister? Dawn broke. Time crept along. She fell into rhythm, her brush moving faster. She summoned the spirit of her old exam cramming. She spent an entire day copying. The pace left the two beside her slack-jawed. Her own head swam. Looking at what she had produced, both brothers thought that in her rush she wrote like a spellcaster. Who could read any of it? Then they heard her say she was too exhausted to go on, and she toppled backward. Ming Xuan and Xue Yu looked at their junior sister sprawled on the ground, and exhaled grimly. Perhaps their eyes deceived them, but it looked as though a small weeping soul had drifted out of her mouth. Life in the Forbidden Grounds was miserable. Both were now counting on her to finish and lead them out. They immediately began kneading her shoulders and pounding her back, with encouragement thrown in. Ming Xuan thought, when he got out, depended entirely on this girl. Feeling slightly better, Ye Chao told them, fine, this emperor shall persevere. Help this emperor up. This emperor can still write. Half an hour later, she threw down the brush and flopped onto the floor. This emperor is done studying. Let this emperor die. Her face was bloodless, her head worse, dizzier, more miserable. Xue Yu grew anxious and told her this was from expending too much spiritual power. She had to hold on. Whether any of them got out rested on her. Seeing her nose bleed, Xue Yu produced spirit-restoring pills at once and told her to take plenty so she could carry on. Ming Xuan poured honeyed words into her ear. If she only worked hard enough, everyone would have the life they wanted. Privately, he thought, hurry up, I want out. Ye Chao's hand trembled around the pill. She swallowed it. Thank you both so much. Truly the finest senior brothers a girl could ask for. Still, credit where it was due. Her third senior brother's pills worked. Not long after taking it, she felt her whole body come alive. Xue Yu asked in disbelief whether she had just broken through. She closed her eyes and felt out her spiritual sense. Peak Qi refining. One step from foundation establishment. While copying, she had felt her sea of consciousness widen. So that was the breakthrough. Ming Xuan found it hard to believe, too. Was breaking through this easy now? Late stage to peak Qi refining was a real barrier. Without 3 days of insight, almost nobody crossed it smoothly. Xue Yu propped his chin. Pill cultivators break through by refining pills, talisman cultivators by drawing talismans. Could she have broken through by comprehending talismans? Given that she had been buried in talisman texts for 2 days, it fit. But Ming Xuan raised an objection. Isn't our junior sister a sword cultivator? Something occurred to Shui Yu. Have you ever heard of dual path cultivation? Wasn't that possible only for a rare few with exceptional insight? Cheng Ming's founding ancestor had indeed walked both the sword and pill paths, but this girl in front of him? He still could not believe it. She walked over and clapped both senior brothers on the shoulder, cutting off the speculation, and said it was probably just the density of spiritual energy here. She told them to stop talking. She had books to copy. It took 2 more days to finish everything. Steward Wang looked at the neat stacks of material laid out before the 3 of them. He judged that Xue Yu and Ming Xuan had little to do with the copying, so he waved them off without a fuss. Watching both senior brothers vanish in an instant, she grumbled that neither had a conscience. Not one of them waited. The one left behind followed Steward Wang too. The 3rd floor of the scripture pavilion. She saw the talisman texts scattered the other night now shelved in neat order. From somewhere, Steward Wang produced several damaged scrolls. He lifted one carefully and asked her politely, "Little one, would you do me a favor?" Her guard shot up. She asked shrewdly, "What kind of favor?" She sensed nothing good in it. She had no interest in unnecessary trouble. She would rather spend the time sleeping. Her attitude left him speechless for a moment before he said these scrolls were left by Changming's founding ancestor for later generations. He went on, "They record a great many ancient pill formulas. Since you manage the memory stone texts, ancient fragments shouldn't be a problem, correct?" Veins stood out on her forehead. She was a person, not a deity. Was he serious? Reading all of it would drain her sea of consciousness dry. Steward Wang was quiet, then asked what she meant. She named her price outright. She would read them, but it would cost extra. Her sleeping hours were valuable too. At the mention of money, Steward Wang's face darkened. Did she not know the state of the Changming sect? Too poor to lift a lid off the pot. Afraid she would refuse outright, he hurried to offer a bottle of pills as payment. Ye Kao's smile vanished. She waved a hand. Never mind. She would go back to lying flat. She hated reading most of all. Money, of course, changed the equation. Seeing her turn to go, Steward Wang panicked. He put a hand on her shoulder and hurried to add, 2 more bottles, 3 bottles of pills in total. She stretched, yawned, and said mildly, "Forget it. She would rather use the time for another nap." Steward Wang realized this rabbit would not budge for anything less than real value. He ground his teeth. "Come back. Copy every one of these ancient texts without an error, and you may take your pick of the elixirs in the medicine pavilion." She broke into a radiant smile. Deal. Steward Wang had the vague sense he had just been played. Once Ye Chao had the ancient fragments in hand, she sent her spiritual sense inside. The world spun, and she opened her eyes again. The scene before her turned unfamiliar. She murmured, "So this is inside the ancient fragment?" The furnishings marked it as the scripture pavilion too, though far plainer than the one she knew. She approached and found an old man refining pills, muttering nonstop. Bitter wormwood, shadow blossom. Bah! Even the dogs in this sect have starved to death, and here I am refining pills. She heard him say bitterly, "Once this old man has money, he's going home to raise pigs." Ye Kao thought, Cheng Ming's ancestor had ambition after all. Circumstances permitting, she would rather go home and raise pigs too. Never mind the grumbling. His hands never stopped for an instant, condensing, controlling the flame, sorting the herbs, one seamless flow. At last his hands formed an intricate seal. A blazing golden spirit-tempering pill seal hung in the air and sank into the furnace. Ye Chao watched every step, taking care to memorize the hand forms of the seal. Only once certain of it did she open her eyes. She picked up the brush and copied the formula out. Steward Wang watched her write at speed and glanced at what she had put down. He thought, this rebellious little thing does have some ability. Ye Kao worked with total focus. The whole pavilion held nothing but the rasp of her brush. Before long, nose bleeding, she told Steward Wang she was finished. One hand wiping the blood, she held out the other for the key to the pill pavilion. He handed it over and, seeing how pale she was, kindly told her to go get some sleep. She trudged slowly out of the scripture pavilion. The instant she was out of his sight, she swallowed one of Xue Yu's spirit-restoring pills. Sleep? Please. She had a pill pavilion to fleece. She did not head straight for Pill Peak. She had read plenty of fragments, but still only half understood pills. No matter. When in doubt, find her 3rd senior brother. Jaeyu had already retired. He heard knocking, opened the door, and was startled badly by the figure outside. A closer look showed it was his junior sister. He asked sourly, "Playing Lady Ghost at my door this late?" She spun the Pill Pavilion key on her finger, her excitement plain. "Third senior brother, let's go to Pill Peak. Steward Wang gave me the key for copying the fragments. I can take whatever pills I like." Then she gave him a brilliant smile and invited him along to help her pick. Wei Yu could not believe the Iron Rooster had shed a feather. A rare event indeed, he thought. He also knew such a chance did not come twice. So he agreed readily, prepared to help her bleed Steward Wang thoroughly. The two settled the plan and raced to the medicine pavilion, targeting only the expensive, sweeping up everything of value. Ye Kao left loaded with spoils. The pair walked away from Pill Peak in excellent moods. Pity the master of Pill Peak. He watched the two spendthrifts helplessly. They took 1/10 of the rare elixirs and stripped a good portion of the herb fields besides. His heart bled. If they weren't direct disciples, he would have booted them out long ago. Xu Yu finished helping her choose and she returned to her room. For reasons he could not explain, stepping into her room he found the spiritual energy absurdly dense, a match for the forbidden grounds. Not being a talisman cultivator, he chalked it up to her luck. He lectured her earnestly. With conditions this favorable, she ought to cultivate harder. The Sect tournament was barely half a year off. Ye Kao nodded thoughtfully and said her senior brother was right. Before he could feel any relief, his dear junior sister added, "But a great philosopher once said one must sleep by 10, or the body suffers." And with that she climbed into bed, folded her hands and said, "Good night, third senior brother." 3 question marks rose above Zhueyu's head. Which philosopher? Wait, she's asleep already? There was nothing he could do with her. He could only say, in the tone of a man watching iron refuse to become steel, "Good night, junior sister." Early the next morning, Ye Chao went to the dining hall and overheard 2 Pill Peak disciples chatting. One said he had just refined 2 pills and they should sneak down the mountain to sell them. The other agreed at once. 2 should fetch 200 mid-grade spirit stones. Then they could stop gnawing steamed buns. Ye Chao got excited, leaned in, and asked, "Do pill cultivators really make that much?" Both nodded. Seeing the dark iron sword at her hip, they took her for an inner sect sword cultivator. Strictly speaking, only sword cultivators are poor. A bottle of mid-grade spirit-restoring pills sells for 300 high-grade stones. Though in this sect, only senior brother Zhui can refine them. As a poor sword cultivator, she felt distinctly insulted. She thought of last night's haul, plenty of high-grade among it, but the rarities from Pill Peak could not be sold. So how was she supposed to make money? A spark went off in her head. She could refine her own pills and sell those. She was a woman who acted on ideas. Refining pills required a furnace. So she earnestly asked the 2 pill cultivators what a furnace cost. On learning that even a halfway decent one ran 10,000 high-grade spirit stones, she decided she had troubled them for nothing. With overhead like that, what profit was left? And more to the point, she did not have that kind of money. After eating, she went and asked the dining hall auntie for a large iron pot. Surely you could refine in anything. A big pot was still a pot. Back in her courtyard, she set the pot up and lit a fire. Her head was full of nothing but money. The herbs she had swept out of Pill Peak the night before would come in handy now. As the flames rose, she tossed the herbs into the air. Then copied the ancestors' movements from the fragment, fingers shifting, using her spiritual sense to grind and temper the herbs. In the end, she matched him exactly, blended them, and struck the pill seal. She drew her spiritual sense back, fusing and shaping. At the final step, scenting, she thought for a moment, and chose her favorite smell, snail rice noodles. Certain she had succeeded, she could not wait to see what her first batch of pills looked like. She gripped the lid reverently and lifted it, full of hope. Something had gone wrong somewhere. Inside the pot sat one enormous, sickly yellow lump. She froze. She remembered her third senior brother's pills. Round, smooth, pearly white, perfectly plump. Hers, however you looked at it, was overnourished. She consoled herself. One shouldn't compare too much. At least it was edible, right? Back in the modern world, she had been a kitchen menace. Succeeding on the first try was quite good. This batch, learned from the ancestor, was called a spirit tempering pill, said to refine spiritual energy. She was itching to find a tester. First target, the gentlest of her seniors, Shui Yu. At that moment, Sue was teaching the inner Sect juniors how to refine pills without failing. He was passing on experience. In pill refining, the most important thing is a calm and steady mind. During competition, people will interfere on purpose to rattle you. When that happens, ignore them. Then he demonstrated for them. Every movement flowed like water, precise and unhurried. The juniors watched with chins and hands full of worship. Third senior brother is amazing, a direct disciple indeed. Just then, Yeqiao burst in, calling loudly, "Third senior brother, I brought you something good." She hauled her homemade pill out of her pouch. The reek of snail rice noodles flooded the room. A second later came the dry heaving. Shuiyu covered his mouth, his serene composure gone. He managed to say, shaking, "Take that lump a little further away." The words were barely out when the furnace boiled over. A heartbeat later, with a boom, it blew apart. Zhu Yu stared at the ruptured furnace, utterly stunned. A mouthful of black smoke drifted slowly from his lips. Through his teeth, he said, "Junior sister, you are cruel." Years of refining pills, and this was the first time Xueyu had been stunk into an explosion. Yeqiao smoothed down her senior brother's singed hair, then pushed the enormous lump toward him again. "Senior brother, want a taste? I think it's probably delicious." Still exhaling black smoke, Xueyu flatly refused to eat the unidentified object and told her to eat it herself. At that moment, the classroom door flew open. Elder Zhao, drawn by the noise, came rushing in and was hit at the threshold by an eye-watering stench. He pointed straight at Yeqiao and roared, "Insolence! You dare cook filth in a classroom!" She hugged her firstborn pill tight. How could he use such uncivilized language? She said mournfully, "Elder, you may not love it, but please don't wound it." Choking on snail rice noodles, Elder Zhao boiled over and said 3 short words, "Get out, now." Before leaving, Yeqiao snapped her giant elixir in half. She stuffed one half into Xueyu's hands, telling her third senior brother to finish it and report back later. Then she ran without looking back. Looking at the pill in his hand, he put on a mask of suffering. From the corner of his eye, he spotted Mu Chengxi outside and remembered a fine saying, "Suffering alone is worse than suffering together." He waved him over, wearing the kindest smile he could manage. "Junior brother, come here. Our junior sister refined some pills. I'll share." Mu Chengxi asked eagerly. "Really? Junior sister can refine pills now?" Xueyu waited for his mouth to open and shoved the pill straight in. Caught completely off guard, Mu Chengxi swallowed it. Then, under the assault of that overwhelming flavor, he quietly doubled over and vomited, screaming inwardly, "What in the world is that taste?" Elsewhere, Yeqiao was hurrying to find her next tester. Near Mingxuan's courtyard, she ran and shouted, "Second senior brother, community warmth delivery." Mingxuan's entire field of vision was abruptly occupied by half a yellow lump. He recoiled. "What is that thing?" Yeqiao explained brightly, "It's a pill." Hearing it was a pill and catching the smell, his first thought was, does Xueyu hate him that much? Developing a biological weapon to kill him. Yeqiao was silent a few seconds, then said, "Second senior brother, I refined this." Mingxuan went briefly awkward, then scrambled to recover. Oh, of course. He knew that useless Xueyu could never refine a pill this large. Hearing that, Yeqiao brightened instantly and pushed the half pill toward his mouth, telling him to try it. Under her burning gaze, Mingxuan had no choice but to grit his teeth and eat. She was delighted that he ate it. He, meanwhile, stood off to the side, vomiting violently. The Changming inner Sect elders were in council. Elder Duan spoke first. That girl Yeqiao is stuck at peak qi refining. He suggested letting the youngsters prepare and take a trip into a secret realm in a few days. Some real experience outside. Elder Zhao thought of whatever it was Yeqiao had cooked and stroked his beard in immediate agreement. He thought, get that walking disaster off Changming ground quickly. Any longer and he might not stop himself from thrashing her. Qin Fan Fan settled it. No objections, so let the children go. If these rabbits didn't get tempered outside, they would dismantle the sect. How long had it been? And they had already torched the scripture pavilion. Steward Wang was overjoyed and cried out, "The sect master is wise." At last those rabbits were being shipped out. If open flames were allowed, he would have set off firecrackers to celebrate. Xiaoyi knocked on his junior sister's door. He told the freshly woken Yeqiao to pack. Tomorrow her 3 senior brothers would take her out for training. A small secret realm at the foot of Yunzhong City was about to open. He went on. That realm was carved up every year by the Wenjin and Yueking sects. though Yue Qing's direct disciples looked down their noses at everything and probably wouldn't bother. Ye Qiao finally remembered. The original mentioned this small realm. There were no shortage of treasures inside. The female lead came out with her arms full, including a pile of ancient spirit herbs. Ye Qiao muttered that in the original only Yue Qing entered this realm, perhaps a butterfly effect of her own doing, but now Changming was sending them too. Early next morning, the four packed lightly and readied themselves to head down the mountain. Ming Xuan waved, "Junior sister, over here," and tossed her a set of robes. She was struck dumb by the sight before her. To her eyes, 3 senior brothers in blazing red robes looked like nothing so much as 3 magnificent turkeys. Ming Xuan told her these were Changming direct disciple robes, woven from thousand-year ice silkworm thread, impervious to fire and water. Mu Chongxi urged her to change quickly. The sect might be poor, but it was generous with its direct disciples. Ye Qiao did not change. She found the robes far too gaudy. Wearing that out would draw every eye. Instead, she urged all 3 of them to go change into plain clothes. The less noticeable, the better. Baffled, Mu Chongxi asked outright, "Why? Are our robes not handsome?" Ye Qiao shook her head. "Not that." Privately, she thought. Mainly because when you're setting people up, direct disciple robes announce exactly who you are. None of the 3 knew what she was really thinking, but all had a feeling this trip would be eventful. A quarter hour later, all 3 had changed as instructed. Ming Xuan in white, Xue Yu in green, Mu Chongxi in red. She looked them over. Excellent. Perfect. And so the 4 of them boarded a crane and set off in high spirits. Yunzhong City had swelled these past days with the small realm about to open. Rogue cultivators and minor sect disciples everywhere. The 4 blended into the crowd unnoticed, which suited them fine, and they went sightseeing. Ming Shen spoke first. "I hear there's a spirit-gathering talisman going around the market. They say you can cultivate lying down. Shall we try one?" Ye Qiao caught the eager Ming Xuan at once. "Senior brother, don't buy it. It's all a scam." Ming Xuan asked, puzzled. "How would you know?" "Let's just try. It isn't expensive." The poor woman Ye Qiao was pinned again. In any case. Not expensive. How did she know? Because she drew those talismans herself. She had only meant to earn a little, but once other cultivators discovered how useful they were, it got out of hand. Disciples of the 5 great sects were strictly forbidden to sell talismans or pills privately. Afraid of being caught and locked in the forbidden grounds again, she had stopped. Merchants smelled opportunity. They forged them, and worse, they priced them over 10 times what she had charged. To keep Ming Xuan from being fleeced, she pulled him off toward an inn, arguing that people from other sects were arriving and they'd lose their rooms. He conceded the point and reluctantly turned back, thinking he could buy one after they returned. When the 4 reached the Yunzhong Inn, they found the ground floor packed, everyone apparently watching something. Mu Chongxi, who loved a spectacle, dragged Ye Qiao straight into the crush. From the chatter around her, she learned. The female lead of the novel, Yun Kui, had arrived. No wonder the commotion. She rose on her toes to look. One glance caught Yun Kui's figure. The female lead really was striking, and impossible to miss. She poked Mu Chongxi, who was busy gawking. "See that girl?" he answered. "Yes, why?" Ye Qiao remembered that in the novel, the fastest of the male leads to fall was Mu Chongxi. The fool had not one scheming bone and got played completely. She laid a hand on the sword at her hip, lifted her chin, and said gravely, "4th senior brother, have you heard this one?" Then she pointed toward Yun Kui, her face profound. "No woman in the heart, and the sword draws itself divine. First page of the manual. Cut down the object of your affection first. Slaughter freely." Mu Chongxi decided his junior sister had lost her mind. Speechless, he pressed a hand to her head. "Stop talking nonsense and hurry. Any slower, and the rooms will be gone. Inns here gouge shamelessly. The later you arrive, the higher the price." Ye Qiao seized his hand and charged for the inn, urging him on in exasperation. "Then what are you standing there for? Get in there!" Under her leadership, the 4 finally squeezed inside. She was about to ask for 4 rooms, when it occurred to her that she had no idea what rooms currently cost. So she turned to the nearest senior brother and asked which room type was cheapest and best value for 4. The 2 of them, huddled together in discussion, caught the eye of Yun Kui, who stood at the center of her own crowd. She was not certain the girl was senior sister Ye Qiao. In her memory, Ye Qiao was a quiet, dull figure nobody noticed, nothing like the vivid girl before her, and yet the 2 were identical. Carrying a little probing and a feeling she could not name, Yun Kui stepped forward. Might I ask which sect this fellow cultivator's junior sister belongs to? Ye Chao was mid-discussion about cheap rooms when she glanced up carelessly, then answered without a flicker. A minor sect. Not worth mentioning. Yunche heard the dismissal. Her lips pressed thin, and something like resentment rose in her. Before she could speak, a voice cut her off. The young man was Yue Qing's chief direct disciple, Song Hansheng. Told to leave by her eldest senior brother, Yunqi could only swallow it and go quiet. Once the two had gone, Ming Xuan stroked his chin thoughtfully. That girl is the one Yue Qing just took in, the supreme water spirit root prodigy. Mu Chongxi asked, and who's the one beside her? Full of himself. Ming Xuan's temple twitched. He's Yue Qing's chief direct disciple, same rank as our eldest senior brother. A little arrogance comes with it. Ye Chao felt deep regret. She had miscalculated. Yue Qing's chief disciple was here, and she had not brought their eldest senior brother. If it came to a fight over herbs, her side had no advantage. On the other side, the Yue Qing group was discussing them too. Of those 4, 2 golden cores, 1 half-step golden core, and 1 girl at Qi refining. Yunchu's lips pressed together unconsciously. That many golden core disciples. Had a great sect's direct disciples come as well? Were the men beside that girl truly so advanced? The innkeeper cupped his hands and announced loudly, "Honored guests, all other rooms are taken. Only premium rooms remain. 100 high-grade spirit stones each." Mu Chongxi and Ye Chao both stared at him. Hot-tempered as ever, Mu Chongxi leapt up and shouted, 100 high-grade stones? What kind of bandit inn is this? Xu Yu covered his face. Even Ming Xuan, who never agreed with him, told him to shut up. What direct disciple behaves like that? Utterly humiliating. The senior brother beside Yunqi sneered first. Enough, don't overthink it. Anyone that destitute could hardly be a great sect's direct disciple. More likely rogue cultivators who took centuries to reach golden core. Yunchu agreed they must be rogues. What direct disciple would embarrass themselves like that? Inexplicably, she felt relieved. Before the Yunzhang city realm opened, Ye Kao's group reached the entrance. Zhui Yu warned them, there is poison mist inside. Breathing it causes dizziness. Most people buy an artifact that blocks it. Full of hope, she asked her third senior brother whether they had one. And the same third senior brother, who spoke so authoritatively, told her that Changming had no artifact cultivators. Nobody knew how to make them. She would have to buy from the Chengfeng sect. So they were just walking in with no precautions at all? She could not believe her usually dependable third senior brother was this casual. In her memory, every time the female lead entered a realm, it was with a mountain of treasures, artifacts, and pills. Why was their situation this pitiful? Ming Xuan offered lazily, if you can hold your breath, hold it. If not, cover your nose and mouth with something. It only gets awkward if you have to fight. She started thinking, if it was only mist. Then it was probably no different from smog on a modern morning. She dug a piece of cloth out of her mustard seed pouch and cut it with her dark iron sword, trimming it into the shape of a mask. Then she added thin cords. Perfect. Yu Chao made a dozen of them just in case. She handed one to each senior brother and told them to put them on. She called them masks and said they might block some of the poison mist inside. Then she demonstrated how to wear one. None of the 3 had seen such a thing, and the shape struck them as bizarre. But under their junior sister's expectant gaze, none of them had the heart to embarrass her. With all 4 masked, plenty of curious stares followed them along the road. People thought this group looked very odd. What was that on their faces? Ye Kao saw that the Yue King party had arrived. That was the man who had knifed the original owner in the back. It seemed Yue King had sent only 3 direct disciples, Yun Kui, the chief disciple Song Hansheng, and Su Zhuo. He seemed to feel her scrutiny. On reflex, he stepped in front of Yun Kui, assuming this was another female cultivator jealous of his junior sister. His junior sister was beautiful, and women who resented her were beyond counting. Su Zhuo glared back coldly. Under that stare, Ye Chao touched the tip of her nose. Perhaps the mask was why he did not recognize her. She snorted inwardly, lick a boot long enough and you end up with nothing. In the original, Su Zhuo was at best a loyal backup dog, not even qualified as a supporting love interest. More than one person was curious about the things on the 4 of their faces. Finally, someone could not hold out. He came up to Ye Chao and asked, "Young friend, what is that on your face?" Something stirred in her. She pulled out her spare masks and smiled. This is a mask I designed. Not as good as an artifact, but inside the realm it may block some of the poison mist. The crowd perked up. Most people entering a small realm were minor sect disciples and rogues. Not everyone was Yue King, rich enough to produce spirit artifacts. Ye Qiao saw the opening. She climbed onto a rock and held a mask high, and began to hawk. Genuine article, honest price. 5 low-grade spirit stones. You won't lose out, you won't be cheated. Anyone want to try? The crowd thought it over. The price was low, and what if it worked? Never mind, buy first. And so they scrambled to buy masks. Mu Chongxi watched her launch into a sales pitch on the spot and stammered, "Our junior sister is something else." If it were him, he would never have had the nerve to sell in front of that many people. Xueyu cleared his throat. Where spirit stones are involved, our junior sister is very enthusiastic. Suzhou looked at the crowd swarming Ye Qiao. He sneered faintly, scrabbling after pennies. Yunkei privately agreed but said aloud, "Perhaps her sect is poor. That girl is rather pitiable." She thought the girl was barely different in age from her, yet had to bow and scrape over a few spirit stones. Mu Chongxi pointed at the opening realm and shouted, "Let's go! It's open!" Ye Qiao happily gathered up her mask earnings and dashed back to her senior brothers. Once everyone had stepped inside, they found the realm thick with drifting mist. Mu Chongxi pointed at his mask, thrilled. "Junior sister, this thing really does block the mist. Where do you get all these strange ideas?" Ye Qiao answered proudly, "All the wisdom of those who came before." Su Yu thought privately that he had prepared breath-sealing pills in case her invention failed. It seemed he would not need them. The Wei-King party's air of superiority faded fast once inside. They had protective artifacts, but artifacts consumed spiritual power. Suzhou noticed that nobody wearing a mask showed signs of poisoning, proof enough that they worked. He could not help saying, "Eldest senior brother, why don't we buy a few from them?" Song Hansheng knew perfectly well that bleeding spiritual energy like this would not hold. And a mask cost only 5 low-grade stones. Whatever slipped through his fingers would cover it. He lowered himself, walked up to the 4 of them, blocked their way, and asked, "Might this fellow cultivator have any masks to spare?" Ye Qiao whistled inwardly. She had not expected Yue King to come shopping on their own. She said plainly, "Of course we do." Seeing Song Hansheng reach for his money, she added, "But times have changed. The price is no longer what it was." Impatience showed in Song Hansheng's brow. Predictable. Minor sects seize any chance to gouge. He asked, "And what exactly do you mean?" Ye Qiao raised one finger, 100 high-grade spirit stones. Even Song Hansheng froze. Suzhou stepped forward furiously. "You raised the price to target us on purpose. Over 50 times what you were charging. Who would believe that's an accident?" Ye Qiao turned the mask over in her hand, met his outrage, and shrugged with false regret. "Well, we're only a minor sect. We have no money." She was doing it on purpose. Years ago, Suzhou had reported the mayfly grass to Yunhen, and the herb the original owner had bled for was taken. She had never forgotten. Surely Yue King's direct disciples aren't short of a few spirit stones. She leaned on those last 2 words. Great sect direct disciples were all obsessed with face, as if face were edible. So they could hardly blame her for squeezing them. She had no face to lose. Suzhou's voice died in his throat, stuck halfway, choking him with rage. Yue King had money, but they were not deranged. 100 high-grade stones bought a bottle of pills. What did they want with this rag? But refusing with all these rogue cultivators watching would be a slap across Yue King's own face. Song Hansheng's expression shifted, then he looked at Suzhou. "Give her the stones." The eldest had spoken. Suzhou ground his teeth and paid up. 300 high-grade spirit stones. Take good care of them. Ye Qiao beamed, took the pouch, and tossed 3 masks to the 3 of them. Holding the flimsy scrap of cloth, Suzhou had the sudden sense that everyone around was laughing at him. The crowd dispersed. Xueyu had the most experience. He warned them to watch their footing. Many spirit herbs in the realm could move, and some were aggressive. Also, don't touch anything carelessly, and don't wander off. Ye Qiao stuck close to her 3 senior brothers. Getting separated in a place like this would end badly. Mu Chongxi glanced back and saw the Yue King party still standing where they were, as if searching for something. After Suzhou had handed over 100 high-grade stones for nothing, The Yueqing party had been promoted in his mind to rich fools. Xu Yu explained. They're probably looking for strong rogue cultivators to trail and rob at the last moment. That crowd loves picking up other people's kills. Long ago, when Xue Yu came to a small realm for training, he had been lucky enough to travel with their eldest senior brother and had crossed paths with Song Hansheng's group. They had barely tracked down a clear heart grass, usable for clear heart pills. Their eldest had just cut down the guardian beast. And Song Hansheng's group swooped in and took it. Saying he wasn't angry would be a lie, but there was nothing to be done, so from then on, Wei Yu quietly kept his guard up. Around this Yueqing crowd, Mu Chongxi started. Should we keep our distance? He had no desire to fight hard and then be robbed at the finish. Mingxuan considered, then took her hand. Move faster. Don't let them mark us. The three of them talked it over, and the content left Ye Chao incredulous. Ye Chao tugged at Mingxuan. She looked all three in the eye. Why are we shaking them off? They've robbed you plenty of times, haven't they? Don't you want to hit back? Hit back? It was the first time Xue Yu had heard the phrase. He pulled her aside and corrected her. Disciples of the righteous path must be open and honorable. How could we retaliate against people? Even Ming Xuan, hardly known for temper, nodded in agreement. We aren't demonic cultivators. She rephrased. Then don't you want to return the courtesy? Running was out of the question. Others walked into walls. She intended to punch a hole through hers. Ye Chao rubbed her hands. Third senior brother, do you have a pill that hides cultivation temporarily? Every cultivator in this world wished the whole realm could see their level. Who would think to hide it? But Xue Yu enjoyed researching exactly these oddities. He thought back a moment. In fact, he did. Do you want to take a concealment pill? Ye Kao shook her head. Not me. You. What did a qi refining girl have to hide? Concealing her senior brother's cultivation was what mattered. That way they could go and swindle Yueqing. Conduct a friendly exchange with Yueqing. A bad feeling settled over Xue Yu. What are you planning now? Honestly, years as a direct disciple had shown him every kind of storm. Only Ye Chao kept rewriting his understanding of the world. Ye Chao blinked and smiled. Nothing at all. I just want a friendly exchange with them. Song Hansheng's group had marked a golden core rogue cultivator. They were talisman cultivators without a sword cultivator's raw combat power. Every trip into a small realm, they targeted rogues with no backing. Don't worry, junior sister. With me here, you'll reach foundation establishment this time. He glanced at Yun Kuei as he said it. He was quite pleased with this junior sister, beautiful and soft. A hint of a smile touched Song Hansheng's eyes. When the time comes, I'll place the treasures in your hands myself. Yun Kuei flushed and murmured assent. High talent, good family, chief direct disciple, and treating her so specially. Suzhou watched their easy intimacy, hurt, and said nothing. He knew his junior sister had only ever seen him as a brother. Then, from not far off, came a deliberately lowered voice. I can't believe an enlightenment leaf turned up here. Junior sister, your cultivation is the highest among us. You have to carry it out. Ye Chao answered gravely, don't worry, I'll keep it safe. Song Hansheng's ears pricked up. A leaf from the enlightenment tree? Leaves from that tree, as the name suggested, could send a cultivator into deep meditation. Countless great sects coveted them. Suzhou frowned. Were these rogues really that lucky? Was it a trap? Song Hansheng released his spiritual sense, confirmed no danger nearby, and said, the strongest of them is a girl at peak qi refining. What would they gain by faking it? Inside the realm, nearly everyone wore a white mask over half their face, and the fog was thick. He genuinely did not recognize the woman who had just taken him for 100 stones. Yunker listened, then tugged lightly at Suzhou's sleeve, her voice small. Senior brother, isn't this a little wrong of us? The girl's timid words softened him. His junior sister was too kind. He laughed it off. The cultivation world runs on strength. If they can't hold what they have, we're merely teaching them early. He delivered that shameless line without a flicker. We're only showing these rogues what it means to carry treasure beyond your station, and how cruel people can be. That's all. Ye Kao sent the other two to hide and kept Xue Yu to play along. At the sound, the two exchanged a glance. The man who had said that shameless line was Suzhou. Meeting that cold gaze, she lost herself for a rare moment. He had his junior sister to protect, and she would make certain her senior brothers never ended up kneeling at the female lead's feet. She pushed the feeling down, and her face turned frightened. Her voice wavered. "What do you want?" "Little one, hand over the enlightenment leaf." Song Hansheng smiled slowly. "Otherwise, I doubt you want to watch your senior brother get crippled." The words had barely landed when a talisman flew from Song Hansheng's fingertip. Blinding golden light shot out and struck Xueyu. He clutched his chest, coughed blood, and went down. "Third senior brother!" Ye Chao's eyes flew wide, her voice climbing. Xueyu coughed violently, clutching his chest. "Junior sister, don't worry about me." Her reaction pleased Song Hansheng enormously. He had not expected a talisman meant only to intimidate to carry such force, dropping a man in one strike. He concluded the rogue's cultivation must simply be too low. He said coldly, "If you don't want your senior brother to suffer further, hand over the leaf." After a brief standoff, Ye Chao surrendered the box and rushed to help her senior brother up. "There's a seal on the box. Let us go and I'll tell you how to break it." That reassured Song Hansheng considerably. If she had simply thrown the leaf at him, he would have suspected a trick. He did not answer, choosing instead to try the seal himself. Nothing. He was privately impressed. Was the box really so intricately made? The young man agreed grudgingly. "Fine, I'll let you go. Now how do we break it?" Ye Hao did not need to think. She recited the entire multiplication table to them on the spot. "This array was handed down by our sect. You must wait quietly for 49 days. Then silently recite the formula I just gave you, and it opens." Ye Chao delivered it flawlessly, the words flowing far too smoothly to sound invented, and oddly rhythmic besides. Song Hansheng warned her severely, "Deceive us and you're dead." Ye Chao put on a pitiful face. "How could I? I'm only a rogue cultivator. I wouldn't dare deceive a great sect's direct disciples." Song Hansheng was well satisfied with the trip's haul. He could not be bothered with these lowly rogues any longer. He walked off with the box and never looked back, once the Yue King group was fully gone. Xueyu, who had been lying motionless, sprang up like a carp and reined in his aura. The two hiding behind the trees emerged. "Heavens, when did you two learn this and keep it from me?" Mingxuan marveled at his junior brother's performance. Blood on cue, no hesitation at all. And that blood. Xueyu produced a handful of red berries from his pouch, picked up on a whim earlier. He'd never guessed they had this use. Magnificent. Mu Chongxi quietly raised a thumb. One trip out with their junior sister, and his head now held only 3 thoughts. "You can do that? So that's an option. That's allowed too?" The praise left Xueyu a little embarrassed. He cleared his throat. "Junior sister, what exactly did you put in that box?" That box was one he used for storage, mostly herbs. It opened on a timer. No incantation required at all. Ye Chao thought about it. I believe it was a flatbread I'd already taken a bite out of. Mingxuan was staggered all over again. "Why did you bring a flatbread? Who enters a secret realm with bread instead of an artifact?" Ye Chao answered innocently. "To eat, obviously. I haven't reached Foundation establishment. I still get hungry." Changming's storage boxes preserve things well. It probably won't spoil in a month. She giggled. "I just wonder which lucky soul at Yue King gets my half-eaten bread." Jiyu had no words. Of all of them, their junior sister was the cruelest. And that multiplication table, what art is that? Mingxuan had never heard of it, but compared to the usual impenetrable cultivation texts, it rolled off the tongue rather nicely. Yikao sounded more innocent still. "Every child in my hometown knows it by heart. I never expected it to fit so seamlessly into the cultivation world." Small realms were not especially dangerous. Xueyu had been to comparable places no fewer than 20 times. He led them deeper with practiced ease. The denser the spiritual energy, the better the finds. As they neared it, Ye Chao felt the energy churning inside her. They were not the only ones here, and Xueyu worried about being beaten to it. At the very center of the realm, a vast field of spirit herbs filled their vision. Emerald leaves giving off a fragrance that reached into the lungs. The scent alone left the mind clear and bright. Clear heart grass. Xueyu had once managed to find a single stalk, only for Yue King to take it, and he had regretted it for a long time. He had never imagined a whole field. Ye Chao, meanwhile, was frantically calculating how much these would fetch as pills. "Hurry, before someone else arrives!" Having learned from being robbed, Zhueyu instructed quickly, "Save the roots. We can transplant them to Pill Peak." The four split up. Ye Kao and Ming Xuan harvested a separate patch. She had just crouched and reached out when a cold talisman tore through the air straight at her. About to strike Ye Chao, Ming Xuan threw out a diamond talisman in an instant, blocking the attack cold, at the same moment as the talisman drifted to the ground. Ming Xuan's face went cold, a detonation talisman. If not for his reflexes, landing on a girl at peak chi refining, it would have killed her or blown her away. Song Hansheng stood with his hands behind his back, not a trace of guilt, waving a talisman between his fingers. Decent reflexes. Ming Xuan's expression changed. He watched the man warily and put an arm out to shield Ye Chao. Now he understood. Not one of Yue King's direct disciples was worth anything. The standoff drew the rogue cultivators nearby. Watching a spectacle is human nature. A spot that had been empty filled steadily. Ming Xuan's face darkened. Song Hansheng promptly laid down a barrier, sealing the rogues out. As he saw it, since he had spotted this field, it belonged to Yue King. Nobody else was taking a single stalk. The sight drew a remark from Ye Chao. He guards his food well. Ming Xuan snorted, amused by the comparison. Doesn't he, though? Look at him, just like a dog. The two of them traded lines until Song Hansheng's face was dark enough to wring ink from. Yunkui frowned. How can you speak like that? Why are these rogues so rude? Ming Xuan glanced at her, his tone strange. Were we talking to you? Why are you so eager to insert yourself? Ye Kao laughed. Her second senior brother's mouth really was foul. But when it wasn't aimed at family, listening to him tear someone apart was deeply satisfying. Yuncha had been coddled her entire life, and even entering the immortal path had gone smoothly. Nobody had ever humiliated her like this. Her face twisted, she bit her lip hard, and her eyes went red. Ming Xuan was astonished. Crying? Already? He remembered pressing down on his junior sister's head daily and calling her a potato landmine, and Ye Chao had simply turned around and punched him. Suzhuo, aching for her, hurried to wipe her tears while issuing a warning. We are Yue King direct disciples. This is our junior sister. He was trying to make these four behave. Oh, direct disciples? Mu Chongxi had come running at the noise and caught exactly that line. His brows shot up and he grinned. That impressive, are you? Outside the barrier, a crowd of rogues had gathered, whispering. Yue King? No wonder they're so arrogant. Terrible luck, provoking Yue Qing's direct disciples of all people. And making Yun Kui cry, no less. Their junior sister is such a delicate thing. What god Sui Yu was this? So only Yun Kui counted as a person? Their own junior sister had been ambushed a moment ago. Where was her defender? He swallowed the irritation and kept it off his face, saying mildly, So these are the friends from the Yue King sect. Then he pivoted. Though the moment you arrived, you struck at our junior sister. That hardly seems appropriate. If our second senior brother hadn't reacted in time, she would be injured now. Song Hansheng's expression grew more contemptuous still. A disciple of some minor sect. So what if he had hurt her? Injured is injured, and it didn't even land. And if it had, would you expect me to apologize? A minor sect. How dare you? The watching rogues nodded along. That's enough. Yue King isn't even holding it against you, and you keep pushing. Ye Kao heard it all. Fine. Nothing but Yue King bootlickers, the lot of them. Song Hansheng sneered coldly and spoke again. This field of clear heart grass belongs to Yue King. If you know what's good for you, leave. Stop obstructing our harvest. Mu Chongxi ground his teeth at the sight and was about to charge in and settle it. Yi Hao held him back, fourth senior brother. Her voice went soft, her wide eyes utterly innocent. Can you beat Song Hansheng? The question was functionally identical to asking a man whether he could perform. Mu Chongxi answered instantly. I could beat 3 of him. Talisman cultivators had weak combat power. Once closed on, all they could do was take hits. He was not exaggerating. Yi Chao's eyes lit up. Then can you knock him out of here? He hesitated. That doesn't seem right, does it? Chang Ming was known for defending the weak, driving people off to monopolize a field went against everything a righteous disciple believed. Ye Chao pushed him forward. What's not right about it? Ye Kao's voice turned earnest. Back then I studied so I could speak calmly with idiots. Now I study the sword so idiots have to speak calmly with me. Haven't you heard the saying? One day the sword is in your hand, and you cut down every dog that lectures the world. Sword cultivators don't learn the sword to debate. Mu Chongxi's reason told him this was wrong, yet somehow he found himself persuaded. Sword cultivators were this strong. What was there left to debate? It's all on you, fourth senior brother. She pushed him forward. I know you can do it. She looked up at him, eyes full of expectation, and the last of his hesitation dissolved. Fine, he nodded. No more delay. He reached out. The instant the sword left the sheath, spiritual energy detonated. A white blur of a blade. In that heartbeat, every rogue outside the barrier and even the dark iron sword at Ye Chao's hip trembled at once. Born sword bones. In the whole cultivation world, you could count them on one hand. Ye Chao admitted she was rather taken with this normally unserious senior brother. A second before Mu Chongxi drew, Song Hansheng sensed danger. He hadn't even taken hold of the herb in his hand before he threw himself back a step. Still a beat too slow. The diamond talisman on his person shattered. The crowd went silent. Suzhuo could not believe it. That talisman had taken senior brother Song a long time to make and was said to withstand a golden core's full strength. And it broke like nothing? A single strand of sword energy, how was that possible? Song Hansheng clenched his teeth. Without that talisman, one could imagine it landing on him directly. If it hadn't blown him away, it would have crippled him. Where in the world did these cursed rogues come from? Song Hansheng did not dare move rashly now. He glared at them, wanting nothing more than to flay alive the people who had humiliated him. Hurry, second senior brother, third senior brother. Ye Chao stopped paying Yue Qing any mind and waved cheerfully at the two who were still processing. Ming Xuan watched his junior sister and Mu Chongxi already stripping the field. His conscience finally protested. Shouldn't we leave some for others? Why should we? Ye Chao's exasperation was total. Now she understood why Changming lost every year. That saintly reflex had to go. Don't listen to Elder Zhao and Elder Duan's nonsense. She launched into a furious campaign of persuasion. What's this about walking your own road and letting others talk? Her lip curled. We walk other people's road, so they have nowhere left to walk. Yue Qing has no shame, so Changming doesn't need any either. He who abandons face is invincible under heaven. Hurry, or they'll take it all. After that speech, Shui Yu and Ming Xuan felt something crack open in their minds. True. Why should we always yield? What has yielding ever gotten us? Nothing except being bullied forever. Thoroughly converted, the Changming group collectively let themselves go and openly claimed an entire field. Suzhuo shook with rage. How can you be so shameless? We took it by strength. On what grounds do you call us shameless? Shui Yu turned, his voice gentle and, listened to closely, entirely unrepentant. Shui Yu discovered that while this behavior did lack refinement, it felt wonderful. He had lived bound by rules, and every trip out had gone like a dog's life. Now, looting alongside his junior sister, it was far more satisfying. Ye Chao was harvesting with total absorption. When she heard a low, rustling vibration, clear heart grass was a heavenly treasure. Whoever took it owned it. Song Hansheng had thought it a certainty, then ran into these unreasonable rogues. Then he sensed something. The corner of his mouth curved into a gleeful smile. Here they come. Here what comes. Ye Chao's head had not caught up. Song Hansheng was not the only one who felt it. The others sensed it too. Mu Chongxi stroked his chin. Demon beasts. Quite a lot of them, by the feel. Jeyu's voice stayed even. Around 100. A pill cultivator's spiritual sense outstripped others, and he easily felt them converging on the field. Perhaps sensing the field had been taken, the first beast to arrive let out a threatening roar. Roughly 2 meters tall, green-hided, shaped like an enormous locust, thin wings beating hard. A second later, it dove straight at Yun Kuei. The girl let out a piercing scream. In her panic, she instinctively pressed toward the strongest person present. Her target was Mu Chongxi. In a realm, sword cultivators fought best, and a golden core won more so. Yun Chu hid behind Mu Chongxi, face flushed. He hurled his long sword into the air, sword energy arcing like a rainbow into the locust's skull. A wet slice rang out. One fatal blow, and the beast dropped straight down. Yun Chu exhaled softly and murmured, "Thank you." Mu Chongxi glanced at her. He had no goodwill toward Yue Qing and answered lazily, "No need. I wasn't trying to save you. You shove like an ox, the young man muttered. You pushed my junior sister all the way to the back. Beautiful since childhood, she'd always been favored. The first time a man gave her no face at all, her eyes reddened. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Mu Chongxi went blank for a few seconds. Crying? One wrong word and she's crying. He didn't understand it, but he was profoundly shaken. Are female cultivators all this terrifying now? The tears circling in Yunkui's eyes froze solid. Am I a plague? Ye Chao watched her fourth senior brother recoil like a man avoiding a curse and felt delighted. At least he had not fallen for the female lead the way the novel said. She touched his arm. Fourth senior brother, how do you feel watching Yunkui cry? In the novel, every supporting man found the female lead's tears unbearably pitiful. Mu Chongxi nodded solemnly. I do feel something. Ye Chao's heart lurched. Feel what? He delivered his conclusion gravely. She wants to swindle money out of me. Her tears run like a tap. Beyond fraud, he could think of no other explanation. Ye Chao had no words. She seriously reviewed the entire original plot. In these adoration novels, the female lead was always a soft, helpless beauty for whom men would go through fire without being asked. In the original, Mu Chongxi would join the whole pack fighting over her, jealousy and all, building a whole arena of carnage. Instead, here he was, sincerely convinced the woman was after his money. Ye Chao patted his shoulder and said earnestly, Fourth senior brother, please hold on to that line of thinking. If his mind stayed crooked enough, no harem drama would ever catch him. While the two of them talked, hundreds of demon beasts had quietly ringed them in. Low-grade beasts without awakened intelligence, quick to kill, just numerous. Mu Chongxi was about to clear them out when Shui Yu stopped him. Wait, fourth junior brother, do you remember who the Sect master sent down the mountain? Qin Fan Fan's real intent was to move the troublemakers elsewhere and to get Ye Chao out to build some nerve. Mu Chongxi was uneasy. Her first trip down the mountain. In his view, 1 or 2 kills would do for courage, not facing 100 alone. Shui Yu did not move. He simply smiled faintly and asked her, Are you afraid? Ye Chao hugged her sword and hesitated. I suppose not. She looked at the giant locusts closing in. Honestly, I'm not scared, but these things are disgusting. Because Ye Chao knew only a few basic forms, and fearing for her safety, Mu Chongxi planned to thin the beasts for her. It would build nerve without real danger. Junior sister, watch. I'll teach you a move. Mu Chongxi's voice rang clear. He winked at her. Look closely. This is the first form of the clear wind art. With that, the Jioxi sword left its sheath. A silver-white blur swept past faster than the eye could follow, and countless strands of sword energy became blades. Only the hiss of passing wind remained in the ear. A heartbeat later, the beasts' heads came off in unison. Standing behind him, Ye Chao's eyes widened slightly as she tried to capture the exact form of his draw, filing the move away for future showing off. What sword art is that? Beside them, Suzhou had gone slack-jawed. So fast. Such overwhelming intent. He was not alone. Song Hansheng frowned, his eyes fixed on the scene. If I'm not mistaken, that resembles Changming's sword intent. Changming, one of the 5 great sects? Suzhou was stunned. Impossible. Those rogues? Changming disciples? Yunqu found it hard to believe. Instinctively, she wanted to deny the possibility. Exactly. Hadn't the girl said it herself? A minor sect. Song Hansheng's face cooled. I'd rather be wrong myself. But that is Changming's sword intent. Sword energy like wind, like a blade, too fast to track. If they were merely rogues, losing a fight still left room to compete on resources. But who could have guessed these bandits were genuine Changming direct disciples? Meanwhile, Ye Chao had met the swarm head-on. Treading breeze under her feet, her speed surged. She slipped nimbly past the locusts flying at her. When one finally caught her, her face did not change. Her wrist turned the hilt, and the dark iron sword cut along the path of its charge, severing it on the spot. In her mind, she kept replaying the rainbow force of her 4th senior brother's strike. Her eyes snapped open and she executed the first form of the clear wind art, wind-severing slash. The soft sword wind landed like a razor, sinking into tough hide. The beast opened its jaws in a wail and split in 2. Not the raw power of Mu Chongxi's strike, but the form was 7 or 8 parts there. Shui Yu was privately astonished. He rarely praised anyone, yet he said it, adapting well. Counting her outer sect time, she had been in the sect less than half a year. Her sword talent looked no weaker than his fourth junior brother's. What Xueyu could not work out was this. If she truly grasped the first form, why were her outer sect scores always middling? Mu Changxi, meanwhile, had fallen into an existential crisis. After a long while, he forced the words out. But the problem is, our junior sister never learned the first form. In 2 months of lessons, Elder Duan had only had Ye Chao study treading breeze for a foundation. The first sword form had not been taught at all. Song Hansheng watched Ye Chao cutting through the swarm, his eyes darkening. Since learning they were Changming direct disciples, he had to take them seriously. At the coming tournament, they would be Yue Qing's rivals. Especially the girl in the middle of the slaughter. He read people well, and her talent was anything but ordinary. Know yourself and know your enemy. Song Hansheng's face was thick enough that the earlier friction might never have happened. He walked up to Ming Xuan and probed obliquely. Where did Changming find this disciple? She's a sword cultivator, isn't she? Ming Xuan was staggered by the man's nerve. Changming and Wei Qing were not close, especially after he had just ambushed their junior sister. He curled his lip and was about to curse Song Hansheng out, when Xueyu cut in. Xueyu smiled. Hardly a match for your high-talent junior sister. Ye Chao is a girl we picked up outside. No comparison to a supreme spirit root. At most, her memory is a little better. Xueyu lowered his head, wearing a look of grave consideration. Only to the level of perfect recall, really. Could it be the same name by coincidence? He sensed something off. Now that he thought about it, that girl's voice did resemble their second senior sister's. Same voice, same name, both sword cultivators. Yunche's pupils shook. The news caught her unprepared. She had seen Ye Chao's face. It really was her second senior sister. She lost to me everywhere. How did she become a direct disciple? Yunchu's voice came out thin. She bit her lip and probed, unwilling to let it go. So senior sister Ye Chao is a Changming direct disciple too? Or did you think we call just anyone junior sister? Mingshuan's tone was indolent. Then he caught the flicker in Yunkei's eyes, something like resentment, and snorted with laughter. You don't actually believe being a direct disciple is some grand status, do you? Yunkei believed exactly that. Or more precisely, she could not accept that someone beneath her in every way was suddenly her equal. Her eyes slid away. Senior brother Mingshuan, must you be so harsh? I only asked a question. Mingshuan smiled thinly and spread his hands. If that's how you want to see it, there's nothing I can do. The exchange caused an uproar. The rogues outside the barrier had squatted down to watch, cracking melon seeds, and every one of them froze. Changming direct disciples? Have the great sects lost their minds? But wasn't Changming famous for being decent and mild? Why are they seizing an herb field? A cultivator raised a timid hand. It's a bit immoral, but honestly, it's satisfying to watch. Their new junior sister is quite something. The rogues were not alone in thinking so. Song Hansheng had been thoroughly needled by Xueyu's humble bragging. Who doesn't have a prodigy junior sister? He pulled Yunquei forward, his voice cold. Junior sister, you go out too. It's good experience. He added, there's no danger. Those beasts are weak. Eldest senior brother, I won't. I'm scared. Yunquei clutched his sleeve, shaking her head, eyes reddening again. They're horrible. Suzhou hurried to defend her. Senior brother Song, our junior sister, is still young. 16 counts as young. Song Hansheng had no words. Is she a giant infant? Song Hansheng was frantic. Couldn't she see Changming already slaughtering? Fail to make a showing now, and Changming would take every scrap of glory. On the other side, Ye Chao had reached her limit. And the swarm was nearly wiped out. She dropped flat on the ground, gasping, unwilling to move. The energy that had been churning inside her was spent completely. Exhausted and strangely exhilarated. She wiped the sweat away. She felt something warm nourishing her from within. A gentle heat so comfortable her eyes began to close. The 3 senior brothers knew she was drained and left her alone, gathering to talk among themselves. You said our junior sister never learned the first form, correct? Mu Chongxi nodded quickly. Right, unless she studied with Elder Duan without my knowing. Otherwise, there's no explanation. Ming Xuan frowned slightly. Is it possible she copied it from your strike? I don't know if you noticed. At the start, her swings were clumsy, like a beginner taking her first steps. Then with each pass she adjusted and gradually learned how to hold the blade correctly and apply the form better. It was exactly like that day in the scripture pavilion, when Ming Xuan demonstrated the fire control talisman for her once. And she reproduced it perfectly, complete and flawless. But I spent 2 months on it. Mu Chengxi's eyes widened and his words stumbled. He had spent 2 full months on the first form and been praised by Elder Duan for extraordinary talent. And his junior sister? 1 look was enough. After the scripture pavilion incident, Ming Xuan absorbed shocks far better. Realizing he had just twisted the knife in his junior brother again, he tried to comfort him. Your memory may not match hers, but in terms of insight. The sentence never finished. Xueyu pointed at Ye Chao. Look. Both heads turned at once, staring at her. Xueyu could not believe it. Junior sister seems to have reached foundation establishment. The astonishment on Ming Xuan's face was undisguised. That breakthrough speed. Does she not have a plateau at all? Mu Chengxi ground his teeth. Thank you so much. You really know how to comfort a man. The 3 of them quietly stood watch while Ye Chao stabilized at foundation establishment. After Ye Chao established her foundation, she felt her sea of consciousness expand to more than double its size, before she could even test what that widening was good for. Yunqiu was already pleading. Second senior sister, could you spare me just 1 stalk of clear heart grass? Give it to you? On what grounds? Because your junior sister's face is that big? Contempt hung at the corner of Ming Xuan's mouth, the look of a man who would rather not sully his eyes. What's 1 stalk? Well, you're this ugly, so go die. Stop standing here offending my eyes.